Want to speak real French from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at FrenchPod101.com.
Top 10 must-know phrases for the restaurant. Let's begin. Oh my gosh, again, food. I'm so hungry. Une table pour trois, s'il vous plaît. Une table pour trois, s'il vous plaît. A table for three, please. Actually, I used that a lot when I was in Italy. But it was a tavole por tre, per favore? A tavola por tre, per favore? Anyways, you can use this phrase when making a reservation. You can change the number depending on how many people are with you. For example, to reserve a table for two, you can say une table pour deux, s'il vous plaît. Une table pour deux, s'il vous plaît. Pour une table pour un, for a table just for one, you will say une table pour un. Le menu, s'il vous plaît. Le menu, s'il vous plaît. The menu, please. Use this when you can see the menu on the table or the waiter forgot to bring one. This happens a lot. J'aimerais ceci, s'il vous plaît. J'aimerais ceci, s'il vous plaît. I'd like this dish, please. You can say this while indicating on the menu. It may come in handy if you're not sure how to pronounce a dish name. Yeah, I use that a lot myself, especially for Japanese food. Sans oignon, s'il vous plaît. Sans oignon, s'il vous plaît. Without onions, please. If you don't like something, you should memorize this. You can refer to anything else by substituting oignon with a different noun. For example, if you want to order a beverage without ice, you can say sans glaçons, s'il vous plaît. Sans glaçons, s'il vous plaît. Sans tomate, without tomatoes. Sans tomate. Pourriez-vous m'apporter du sel? Pourriez-vous m'apporter du sel? Can you please bring me the salt? Yeah, American people love salt. I don't know why, because I don't. You can use this phrase to ask for seasonings such as salt or pepper or a missing tableware. Excusez-moi. Excusez-moi. Excuse me. Use this to call the waiter's attention. Excusez-moi. While trying to make eye contact. Sometimes they might ignore you, unfortunately. Où sont les toilettes? Où sont les toilettes? Where is the bathroom? This may turn useful in any situation, not only when you are at a restaurant. For example, if you are in the street and ask, où puis-je utiliser les toilettes? Where can I use restrooms or bathroom? Qu'est-ce que ce plat contient? Qu'est-ce que ce plat contient? What does this dish have in it? If you have allergies, you have to learn this question to make sure you can fully enjoy your meal. Yes, sometimes at restaurants they ask you if you have any allergies, but sometimes they don't, so please make sure to ask. Est-ce que c'est possible de payer séparément? Est-ce que c'est possible de payer séparément? Is it possible to pay separately? You can ask this question when paying the bill and if you want to split the amount. For example, when you go out with your friends, you can ask for a separate bill, right? Donc, l'addition séparée? L'addition, s'il vous plaît. L'addition, s'il vous plaît. The bill, please. When you are ready to leave the restaurant, use this phrase to ask for the bill. It's common to pay at the table, and though you are not expected to give a tip, it is always a kind gesture to leave some loose change. Yeah, in America, you are expected to do so. In France, not really. But you can give like 1 or 2 euros, you know?
10 phrases to survive at the station, because it's pretty hard in there. It's the jungle. J'aimerais aller à. I'd like to go to. J'aimerais aller à. I would like to go to. Then put the name of the place. Whether it's a city, if you're taking the train, or if it's a metro, you might want to know more precise location. So, if you can find someone at the ticket counter, just ask, J'aimerais aller à, and then they will give you the directions. Est-ce la bonne plateforme pour? Is it the right platform for? Est-ce la bonne plateforme pour? Is it the right platform for? Place. So if the station is really big, you will have a lot of platforms. And sometimes it might get confusing, so you might want to ask if you're on the right place. And if it's a metro, for example, or a tramway, they go both directions, so you want to be sure you are on the right side of the platform to get the right direction, or else you would go the other way, and it can get tricky. À quelle heure est le dernier train? What time is the last train? À quelle heure est le dernier train? What time is the last train? This question sounds so Japanese. If it's a big normal train, they may have trains all day and sometimes even night trains. And if you're talking about a metro or tramway train, then depending on the cities, sometimes they finish later, but around midnight is a good safe spot for the last train, so try to get them before midnight. Sometimes they have some after, but that's mostly in bigger cities, so you don't want to take that risk. Où puis-je changer pour? Where do I change for? Où puis-je changer pour? Where can I change for? Place. I didn't change at the proper spot and ended up 250 kilometers away from where I was supposed to be. Whoopsie. Be sure to check that. And be sure also to have enough time before trains to change. If you're going from a big train to a big train and going through a big train station, or even through a big city, sometimes they have many train stations, so you need enough time to go from one station to another. So be careful with that. Où est la gare? Where is the train station? Où est la gare? Where is the train station? Where is the train station? This is not a sentence to arrive at the station, because you're not in the station, you're looking for it. Ask your local policeman. Train stations are usually indicated, so they should be easy to find, but if you don't know, just ask anyone, really. Où est-ce que je peux acheter un billet? Where can I buy a ticket? Où est-ce que je peux acheter un billet? Where can I buy a ticket? If you're going abroad from France, sometimes you will have to queue at the ticket counter to get your ticket. Usually people speak English. Où sont les distributeurs automatiques de billets? Where are the ticket machines? Où sont les distributeurs automatiques de billets? Where are the ticket machines? In the station, they are a bit everywhere. Est-ce que ce bus va à? Does this bus go to? Est-ce que ce bus va à? Does this bus go to? Place? You can ask this to the driver of the bus, because sometimes, again, the map for all the bus routes can be pretty tricky to understand, and you cannot really be sure if you're on the right side of the road to take the right bus in the right direction. So you should ask your bus driver if you're not sure. Où est l'arrêt de bus? Where is the bus stop? Où est l'arrêt de bus? Where is the bus stop? Depending on the city, you will have many bus lines, so you want to find the right bus stop for the right bus line. So if you find a bus stop, it may not be your right line, so be sure to check that too. Le train a du retard. The train's running late. Le train a du retard. The train is running late. It is indeed. Mostly buses are late in France. Trains are okay-ish. They can depart on time. Don't expect them to be really precise. But still be on time just in case it leaves on time this one time. That was a lot of time. Timey time. In this video, you learned 20 of the most common words and phrases in French. Hi everybody, my name is Leah. Welcome to the 800 Core French Words and Phrases video series. This series will teach you the 800 most common words and phrases in French. But there is a twist. With each new lesson in this series, we'll include the previous lessons at the end. So after you've learned the new words and phrases, stick around and review what you've learned in previous lessons. Reviewing is one of the most important parts of learning a language. You can also get the full list right now at FrenchPod101.com. Click the link in the description to access more example sentences, create your own flashcard deck, and finally master French. Okay, let's get started. First is Bonjour. Hello. Bonjour. Bonjour. Hello. Quand je rencontre une personne, je dis bonjour. When I meet someone, I say hello. Quand je rencontre une personne, je dis bonjour. Bon après-midi. Have a nice afternoon. Bon après-midi. Bon après-midi. Have a nice afternoon. Bon après-midi, mademoiselle. Have a nice afternoon, miss. Bon après-midi, mademoiselle. Bonsoir. Good evening. Bonsoir. Bonsoir. Good evening. Bonsoir, bienvenue. Good evening, welcome. Bonsoir, bienvenue. Bonne nuit. Good night. Bonne nuit. Bonne nuit. Good night. Bonne nuit, mon ami. Good night, my friend. Bonne nuit, mon ami. Enchanté de vous rencontrer. Nice to meet you. Enchanté de vous rencontrer. Enchanté de vous rencontrer. Nice to meet you. Enchanté de vous rencontrer, monsieur. Nice to meet you, sir. Enchanté de vous rencontrer, monsieur. Comment vas-tu? How are you? Comment vas-tu? Comment vas-tu? How are you? Ça fait longtemps. Comment vas-tu? It's been a long time. How are you? Ça fait longtemps. Comment vas-tu? Oui. Yes. Oui. Oui. Yes. Oui, s'il vous plaît. Yes, please. Oui, s'il vous plaît. Non. No. Non. 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 Non, merci. No, thanks. Non, merci. Merci. Thank you. Merci. Merci. Thank you. Merci beaucoup pour l'invitation. Thank you very much for the invitation. Merci beaucoup pour l'invitation. Je m'appelle. I'm. Je m'appelle. Je m'appelle. I'm. Je m'appelle John. I'm John. Je m'appelle John. Au revoir. Goodbye. Au revoir. Au revoir. Goodbye. Au revoir, à bientôt. Goodbye, see you soon. Au revoir, à bientôt. Mauvais. Bad. Mauvais. Mauvais. Bad. C'est un mauvais garçon. He's a bad boy. C'est un mauvais garçon. Bon. Good. Bon. Bon. Good. Les légumes sont bons pour vous. Vegetables are good for you. Les légumes sont bons pour vous. Belle. Beautiful. Belle. Belle. Beautiful. Très beau. Very beautiful. Très beau. Laid. Ugly. Laid. Laid. Ugly. Visage laid. Ugly face. Visage laid. Facile. Easy. Facile. Facile. Easy. Ce problème est facile. This problem is easy. Ce problème est facile. Difficile. Difficult. Difficile. Difficile. Difficult. Très difficile. Very difficult. Très difficile. Près de. Near. Près de. Près de. Near. Je vis près de l'université. I live near the university. Je vis près de l'université. Loin. Far. Loin. Loin. Far. La gare est loin d'ici. The station is far from here. La gare est loin d'ici. Petit. Small. Petit. Petit. Small. Ce pull est trop petit. This sweater is too small. Ce pull est trop petit. Remember, the goal of this series is to build a vocabulary of the 800 most common words and phrases in French. If that sounds like a lot, don't worry, we can help you. Click the link in the description to access the full list. You'll also get example sentences, custom flashcard decks, and more learning resources at FrenchPod101.com. See you next time! Au revoir!
Hi everybody, Candice here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common French questions. The question for this lesson is, what is the participe passé and how do you use it? The participe passé is a temps composé or a composite tense. That means it's made up of two parts, être, meaning to be, or avoir, meaning to have, followed by a verb in the past participle. In French, there are three main temps composés. Le passé composé, which describes the recent past, le plus que parfait, or past perfect, which is used to talk about an action that occurred before another action, and the plus perfect, passé antérieur, which is very formal and can mostly be found in literature or historical books. Let's focus on the passé composé, which is used to describe the recent past, and is the most commonly used out of the three. To use it, you need the present être or avoir plus the participe passé or past principle of the verb. For example, I have read a book would be j'ai lu un livre. The auxiliary verb, in this case, avoir, must be conjugated with the subject. Another example would be nous avons vu ce film le mois dernier, which means we have seen that movie last month. With être, you also need to conjugate it according to the subject, but it's a little more tricky than that. If the subject is feminine or plural, you need to add e, es, or s. For example, she has been to the swimming pool. Is, elle est allée à la piscine. If you're referring to a group of girls, it would be nous sommes allés à la piscine. But when do we need être or avoir? If a verb does not have any grammatical object, you have to use être. This is usually used for verbs describing movement. For example, aller, meaning to go, venir, to come, or partir, to leave. Avoir is used to describe an action and requires an object. For example, you would use avoir with the verbs manger, to eat, boire, to drink, or voir, to read, because you eat, drink, and read something. For example, j'ai lu un livre, I have read a book, or j'ai mangé de la glace, I have eaten ice cream. How was it? It's a bit tricky, isn't it? But with some practice, you'll definitely get better. Do you have any more questions? Please leave them in the comments below and I try to answer them. À bientôt. See you soon. Hi everybody, Candice here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I answer some of your most common French questions. The question for this lesson is, how can you tell if a noun is masculine or feminine? In French, every noun has a gender. That goes for plural nouns too, like apples and oranges. Other Romance languages have masculine and feminine nouns too. It's a trait that comes from Latin, and the gender depends on the origin of the older Latin word. English doesn't have masculine or feminine nouns, so the easiest way to tell the gender of a French noun is by looking at the last letter of the noun. The general rule is that if a noun ends with an I, it's feminine. For example, la lettre, meaning the letter, la veste, meaning the jacket, and la fraise, meaning the strawberry. Nouns that end with any other letter are generally masculine, like le croissant, the croissant, le mec, which means the guy, or le bijou, meaning the jewel. The only thing is, there are lots of exceptions. For example, le fromage, meaning cheese, is masculine, even though it ends with an I. Another example is voix, meaning voice. This word is feminine, even though it doesn't end with an I, so it's la voix. Because there are so many exceptions to the general pattern, it's best to learn nouns and their articles together. That's le or un for masculine nouns and la or une for feminine nouns. Le and la are like the article de in English. Un or une are similar to a. Although for feminine nouns and any other letters for masculine nouns are the most common ways to determine the gender of a noun in French, a few other letter patterns sometimes apply. Some masculine endings are age, like le fromage or cheese, ment, like le document or document, au, like un oiseau or bird, and voir, like le miroir or the mirror. If you see these letter patterns when you're studying French, it's safe to assume those nouns are masculine. Some feminine patterns are sion or chen, like la nation, meaning the nation, T, like la liberté or liberty, and euse, like la chanteuse or the singer. Just like with the masculine letter patterns I just mentioned, you can assume that words ending with this letter patterns are feminine. It's important to remember what gender a noun is because sometimes it influences other parts of the sentence in French. For example, adjectives change their spelling according to the gender of the noun they modify. It looks a bit like this. The blue notebook, which is masculine, is le cahier bleu. The blue chair, which is feminine, is la chaise bleue, with an extra E. And that's it. I hope that answers your question. If you have any more questions, please leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. À bientôt. See you soon. Hi everybody, Candice here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I answer some of your most common French questions. The question for this lesson is, what are reflexive pronouns and when do you use them? Before we get into pronouns, let's cover the basics. Every sentence has a subject and an object. For example, in the sentence J'ai acheté un parapluie, which means I bought an umbrella, je, which is I, is the subject, and un parapluie, which is an umbrella, is the object. With some sentences, the subject and the object are the same. This is when you use reflexive pronouns. Some common examples are se laver, meaning to wash oneself, s'adresser à, to address oneself to, se coucher, to put oneself to bed, and s'habiller, to dress oneself. When we say reflexive verbs in French, we mean verbs that use reflexive pronouns, like the verbs se brosser, s'adresser, s'habiller, s'énerver, se fâcher, and s'imaginer. They all have the pronoun se or s apostrophe before the verb, and they generally mean that the subject of the verb is asking on itself. The reflexive pronouns are me with je for myself, te with tu for yourself, se or s apostrophe if the word starts with a vowel, with il and elle for himself and herself, il, elle for themselves, and nous and vous for ourselves. They go in before the verb and after the subject. For example, if you are going to go to sleep, you would say je vais me coucher. If you and your family get up early in the morning, you'd say nous nous levons tôt le matin. Because these verbs use the reflexive pronoun, their objects usually lack the possessive adjectives that appear in English. For example, il se lave les mains means he washes his hands, though if you translated it word for word, it would sound like he washes the hands. This also goes for other phrases like il se lave les cheveux, he washes his hair, and il se brosse les dents for he brushes his teeth. A common reflexive pronoun phrase we use in French is s'en aller, which means to be on one's way. If your friend is getting ready to go, you might ask, tu t'en vas? Which means, you're leaving? Or, are you on your way out? You can also use reflexive pronouns with emotions to make them stronger. For example, if you made your mother angry, you would say, elle s'est fâchée, as in, she became angry. Using the reflexive pronoun is stronger than elle était fâchée, as in she was angry, which just sounds like factual information. Note that with reflexive pronouns, you conjugate the verb according to the subject. That's why fâché has an extra E in this case. If it were your father or your uncle who were angry, you would write il s'est fâché. So that's it. I hope that answers the question. If you have any more questions, please leave them in the comments below and I try to answer them. À bientôt. See you soon. Hi everybody, Candice here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common French questions. The question for this lesson is, when do you use the direct object pronouns le, la, and les versus the indirect object pronouns lui and leur? Sometimes you want to shorten a sentence with a pronoun rather than use the same noun again. This is similar to how we use it in English. In place of nouns we have already said, such as, did you see that movie yesterday? Yes, I saw it. In French, pronouns come right before a verb to simplify a sentence. For example, if your friend asks you, tu aimes ce roman? Do you like this novel? Instead of, oui, j'aime ce roman. Yes, I like this novel. You might say, oui, je l'aime. Yes, I like it. In this case, you put the pronoun after the subject, je, and before the verb, aimer. But how do you know which pronoun to use? Le, la, and les are used with nouns that are directly attached to the verb. That means you don't need the preposition à. For example, aimer, meaning to like, is one of those verbs. For aimer, we use the L apostrophe in the singular, because aimer begins with a vowel. In this case, je l'aime. In the plural, we would use les. So if you were referring to several novels, you'd say je les aime. Here's another example. La porte est ouverte. Je la ferme. The door is open. I'm closing it. La here refers to la porte, the door, which is feminine. Here's one in the masculine. Someone says, le document est sur la table. The document is on the table. You respond, je ne le trouve pas. I can't find it. Or, I don't find it. Le, before trouve, refers to le document. Lui and leur, on the other hand, are usually only for people, not things. Verbs that use lui and leur use the preposition à. The most common example is probably parler. For example, je parle souvent à ma sœur. I speak often with my sister. Becomes je lui parle souvent. Here, lui, which would be similar to the English with her, refers to ma sœur, which would be my sister. If you're talking about more than one person, you would use leur. I am talking to my brothers would be je parle à mes frères. With the pronoun, it would become je leur parle, meaning I am talking to them. In the common form, you put the pronoun after the verb with a hyphen. That applies to both forms of pronouns. So tell them the truth would be dis-leur la vérité. Another example in the common form is the door is open, close it. La porte est ouverte, ferme-la. Did you get it? Not so bad, right? If you have any more questions, please leave them in the comments below and I try to answer them. À bientôt. See you soon. Hi everybody, Candice here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I answer some of your most common French questions. The question for this lesson is, what are false friends and what are the most common ones? There are lots of words that look similar in English and French, but they don't always mean the same thing. It's pretty fitting that they're called false friends because they can be deceptive. Here are some of the most common ones, so you can avoid any miscommunication the next time you speak French. Attendre in French means to wait. For example, if you're waiting for your friend, you would say j'attends mon ami. To attend is assister. For example, I'm going to attend a show. Would be je vais assister à un spectacle. Make sure not to confuse assister with the verb to assist. That verb is secourir, meaning to help someone. Another commonly confused verb is passer. Passer doesn't mean to pass by, which would be croiser, to cross. Passer means to sit through something or to spend time. For example, passer un examen means to sit through an exam, not to pass an exam. Another common phrase is comment vas-tu passer tes vacances? Meaning, how are you going to spend your vacation? If you respond j'ai envie de passer mes vacances en Italie, it has nothing to do with being envious of Italy. Avoir envie de means to want something or to feel like doing something. So this sentence means I want to spend my vacation in Italy. There are also plenty of nouns that are false friends too. Ville, for example, is not villa, it's city. Also, be careful with the word une librairie, which means a bookstore. Don't expect to borrow things for free. Another example is if someone stops you on the street and asks you for de la monnaie. They're asking for spare change. But if you ask for change en monnaie, it means you want your change in coins rather than bills. In more serious situations, if you fall and get hurt, don't say that you're injuré, because people will become very concerned about your emotional state. Instead say, je suis blessé, which means I'm hurt, in the physical sense. It had nothing to do with church blessings. Okay, I hope that clears things up. If you have any more questions, please leave them in the comments below and I try to answer them. À bientôt. See you soon.
Top 10 phrases tourists should never use. Let's begin. C'est dégoûtant. That's disgusting. C'est dégoûtant. That's disgusting. Even if you are not a tourist, you should never use this sentence. Yeah, that's not really nice to hear. Mon pays est meilleur. My country is better. Mon pays est meilleur. My country is better. This definitely sounds racist, so it's better to avoid it. Je préférerais être chez moi. I'd rather be back home. Je préférerais être chez moi. I'd rather be back home. Even if you like traveling, sometimes you feel like you prefer to be home. However, it's better to keep that thought to yourself. Yeah, that's true. Ta gueule. Shut up. Ta gueule. Shut up. Never say this to anyone unless it's an intimate friend. Well, a lot of people use that when they argue with other people that they don't know. I have before. Je ne suis pas très intéressée par votre culture. I am not really interested in your culture. Je ne suis pas très intéressée par votre culture. I am not very interested in your culture. This is not offensive, but you'll make a bad impression. Right. Je n'aime pas rencontrer de nouvelles personnes. I don't like to meet new people. Je n'aime pas rencontrer de nouvelles personnes. I don't like to meet new people. Yeah, being honest is good, but sometimes you may sound rude. And I know what I'm talking about because I am really honest. On n'a qu'à aller manger à McDonald's. Let's just eat at McDonald's. On n'a qu'à aller manger à McDonald's. Let's just eat at McDonald's. French food culture is rich and people are proud of it. So avoid saying such a thing if you don't want to hurt your French friends' feelings. Yeah, but we do love burgers too, actually, so sometimes we go to McDonald's. Je m'en fous. Boring. Je m'en fous. Boring. This is a strong expression, and it's not only about boredom, it also means that you couldn't care less. In certain situations, this would be extremely offensive. Ça a un goût affreux. This tastes awful. Ça a un goût affreux. This tastes awful. If you can avoid saying this, at least try smiling when you say it. Je vais passer la journée à l'hôtel. I am going to spend the day in the hotel. Je vais passer la journée à l'hôtel. I'm going to spend the day at the hotel. People are not likely to get upset if you say this, but you won't look smart. Yeah, why go on a trip if you want to spend your day in the hotel? Useless, right?
In this video, you'll have a chance to test them out with a quiz. First, you'll see an image and hear a question. Next comes a short dialogue. Listen carefully and see if you can answer correctly. We'll show you the answer at the end. Are you ready?
Une dame demande un renseignement au libraire. Quel livre voulait voir la dame? Excusez-moi, je voudrais jeter un œil sur ce livre sur cette étagère.
Quel livre voulez-vous?
Le livre sur les voitures.
Un moment, s'il vous plaît. Celui-ci?
C'est ça.
Et voilà.
Quel livre voulait voir la dame? Une dame demande un renseignement au libraire. Quel livre voulait voir la dame? Excusez-moi, je voudrais jeter un œil sur ce livre sur cette étagère.
Quel livre voulez-vous?
Le livre sur les voitures.
Un moment, s'il vous plaît. Celui-ci?
C'est ça.
Et voilà.
Un homme et une femme regardent le menu d'un restaurant. Qu'a commandé le monsieur?
Que voulez-vous commander?
La pizza a l'air délicieuse. Je vais prendre ça.
J'ai déjà mangé une pizza hier, donc.
Ah, et pourquoi pas ce hamburger?
Ça m'a l'air bien. Je prends ça.
Qu'a commandé le monsieur? Un homme et une femme regardent le menu d'un restaurant. Qu'a commandé le monsieur?
Que voulez-vous commander?
La pizza a l'air délicieuse. Je vais prendre ça.
J'ai déjà mangé une pizza hier, donc.
Ah, et pourquoi pas ce hamburger?
Ça m'a l'air bien. Je prends ça.
Un homme est au téléphone avec une clinique. À quelle heure doit-il y être? Bonjour, comment puis-je vous aider?
Vous êtes ouvert jusqu'à quelle heure?
Jusqu'à 6 heures, mais il est préférable de venir avant 17h30.
Très bien, ok.
À quelle heure doit-il y être? Un homme est au téléphone avec une clinique. À quelle heure doit-il y être? Bonjour, comment puis-je vous aider?
Vous êtes ouvert jusqu'à quelle heure?
Jusqu'à 6 heures, mais il est préférable de venir avant 17h30.
Très bien, ok.
Un garçon lit son journal intime. Qu'a fait le garçon en premier aujourd'hui?
Il a fait très beau aujourd'hui. Je suis allé à la piscine cet après-midi et je suis allé voir un film ce soir. J'ai aussi étudié ce matin. C'était une très bonne journée.
Qu'a fait le garçon en premier aujourd'hui? Un garçon lit son journal intime. Qu'a fait le garçon en premier aujourd'hui?
Il a fait très beau aujourd'hui. Je suis allé à la piscine cet après-midi et je suis allé voir un film ce soir. J'ai aussi étudié ce matin. C'était une très bonne journée.
Une femme et un homme regardent une photo. Quelle photo regardent-ils? C'est la photo de l'équipe de foot de ton fils? Il est où?
Il est là.
Oh, et c'est le plus grand de l'équipe.
Il est plus grand que moi.
Quelle photo regarde-t-il? Une femme et un homme regardent une photo. Quelle photo regarde-t-il? C'est la photo de l'équipe de foot de ton fils? Il est où?
Il est là.
Oh, et c'est le plus grand de l'équipe.
Want to speak real French from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at FrenchPod101.com.
Top 10 life events you should be able to talk about in French. Let's begin. Naissance. Naissance. Birth. Quel is an interrogative adjective used in question to mean which or that. It has to agree with the noun that it precedes. With a feminine singular noun, it becomes quel. For example, date de naissance is feminine. That's why you have to use quel. For example, you can say quelle est votre date de naissance, s'il vous plaît. This means could you give me your date of birth, please? Être diplômé. Être diplômé. This means graduate. Graduation is an important goal in many people's life. For example, you can say après avoir été diplômé, je voyagerai 1 an partout dans le monde, which means after I graduate, I will travel the world for 1 year. Avoir un travail. Avoir un travail. This means get a job. For example, you can say j'ai eu mon premier travail à 18 ans, which means I got my first job when I was 18. This sentence uses the past tense passé composé. The passé composé is a compound past tense that consists of 2 elements, the present tense of an auxiliary or helping verb and a past participle. Most verbs use the helping verb avoir. However, some use être. Se fiancer. Se fiancer. This means to get engaged. For example, you can say tu es fiancé, félicitations, which means are you engaged? Congratulations. Fiancé is an adjective which means engaged. If the subject is feminine, it's fiancé. The next event is mariage. Mariage. This means wedding. For example, il y a beaucoup de mariages en juin parce que certaines personnes pensent que c'est un mois porte-bonheur pour l'amour. This means there are a large number of weddings in June, as some think it's a lucky month for love. Parce que introduces a cause. It simply translates to English as because. Parce que can also start a sentence. The next event is acheter une maison. Acheter une maison. This means buy a house. For example, j'achèterais une maison si j'avais plus d'argent means I would buy a house if I had more money. This sentence uses the conditional tense with acheter. The conditional is used to express what will happen given certain events or actions. Anniversaire de mariage. Anniversaire de mariage. This means anniversary. For example, pour un 25e anniversaire de mariage, on offre généralement de l'argent. Means silver is the traditional gift for the 25th wedding anniversary. In France, as well as in some other countries, the names of some anniversaries provide guidance for appropriate or traditional gifts for the spouses to give each other. For example, an 8-year anniversary is Noces de Coquelicot, Poppy Wedding. Prendre sa retraite. Prendre sa retraite. Retire. You can say mon grand-père a pris sa retraite à l'âge de 60 ans, which means my grandfather retired when he was 60. The retirement age is around 65 in France. It also depends on how many years you've been working. Voyager. Voyager. Travel. For example, you can say je rêve de voyager aux quatre coins du monde, which means I'm dreaming of traveling all around the world. Aux quatre coins du monde is an expression, literally it means to the four corners of the earth, and can be translated as all around the world. The next event is funérailles. Funérailles. Funeral. You can say les funérailles sont un moment de deuil et de souvenir, which means a funeral is a time to grieve and remember. Actually, funérailles is a formal word, and usually French people use the noun enterrement, which literally means burial. How to ask for and give directions. Let's begin. The first pattern is où est le, la, les. Où est le, la, les. Where is the? Où means where. There is a grave accent on où to tell the difference between où, which means or, but the pronunciation remains the same. Here is a simple sentence. Où est la banque, which means where is the bank. The next pattern is je dois aller au. Je dois aller au. This means I need to go to the. Je dois means I have to or I need to, and comes from devoir, which is an irregular verb. For example, you can say je dois aller au commissariat, which means I need to go to the police station. Comment puis-je aller au? Comment puis-je aller au? This means how do I get to the? Comment means how. Puis-je means can I. Aller means to go. And au is the preposition you need to use before masculine nouns. For example, you can say comment puis-je aller au musée? Which means how do I get to the museum? Est-ce qu'il y a un, une près d'ici? Est-ce qu'il y a un, une près d'ici? This means is there a near here? For example, est-ce qu'il y a une bibliothèque près d'ici? Means is there a library near here? Don't get confused with librairie and bibliothèque. Librairie means bookshop. Library in French is bibliothèque. The next pattern is excusez-moi, savez-vous où est le, la? Excusez-moi, savez-vous où est le, la? This means, excuse me, do you know where the is? When you don't know the person you are speaking to, use vous instead of tu. Both mean you, but tu is informal and vous is formal. For example, you can say, excusez-moi, savez-vous où est le parc? Which means, excuse me, do you know where is the park? Est-ce que le, la, est loin d'ici? Est-ce que le, la, est loin d'ici? This means is the, far from here. Est-ce que literally means is it that. A convenience of everyday French is that a phrase can easily be turned from a statement into a question. For example, you can say est-ce que la poste est loin d'ici? Which means is the post office far from here? Tournez à gauche. Tournez à gauche. This means turn left. This is the basic indication to go left. The first word tourner means turn. It is followed by à, which means to. Lastly, we have gauche, which means left. For example, you can say tournez à gauche au deuxième pâté de maison, which means turn left at the second block. Tournez à droite. Tournez à droite. This means turn right. This is similar to turn left, you just have to substitute gauche with droite, which means right. For example, you can say tournez à droite au troisième feu de circulation, which means turn right at the third traffic light. Allez tout droit. aller tout droit. This means go straight. This is the basic indication to go straight. The first word aller means go and is in the imperative form. The next two words, tout droit, mean straight. For example, you can say allez tout droit, puis tournez à gauche au prochain feu, which means go straight and turn left at the next light. Passer devant. Passer devant. This means go past. Passer means to pass and passer devant means to go past. Devant is a preposition meaning in front of. For example, you can say passer devant l'église, which means go past the church. À l'angle de. À l'angle de. This means at the corner of. This sentence may help you to indicate a particular place. For example, you can say c'est à l'angle de l'avenue, meaning it's at the corner of this avenue. An avenue is a big, wide street in an urban area. En face de. En face de. This means in front of. For example, la station de bus est en face du supermarché. This means the bus station is in front of the supermarket. Traveling in France by bus is easy and cheap. Every city has its own public transit system. Of course, it's easier if you speak a little French. Derrière. Derrière. This means behind. For example, le parking se trouve derrière la salle de cinéma. This means the parking lot is behind the movie theater. Se trouver is a transitive verb that means to be located somewhere or can be found. It can be about an object or a person. À côté de. À côté de. This means next to. À côté de means next to or nearby and is a very common word in French. It is used to indicate the relative physical positions of one thing to another. For example, you can say le restaurant est à côté du parc, which means the restaurant is next to the park. Entre. Entre. This means between. For example, you can say le magasin est entre le café et l'animalerie, which means the store is between the coffee shop and the pet store. In French, café refers to both the drink and the place where you can drink it. Animalerie is a pet shop. 10 phrases to help you in an emergency. Let's begin. Appelez la police, s'il vous plaît. Call the police, please. Use this phrase when you need someone to call the police. In France, you call 17. They should be called if there is a need of police intervention. For example, an accident on the public highway, public disorder, aggression, a robbery, a burglary, etc. Avez-vous de la fièvre? Do you have a fever? Use this phrase when you want to check someone's temperature. Generally, when saying this sentence, you place your hand on the person's forehead to feel if it's warm. Oh! J'ai perdu mon passeport. I lost my passport. Use this phrase when, unfortunately for yourself, you lose your passport. In this situation, find and contact the nearest embassy or consulate from your country. Ouf. Je pense que j'ai mangé quelque chose de mauvais. I think I ate something bad. Use this phrase when you are not feeling very well due to intestinal discomfort and you want something to help the pain. J'ai besoin d'un médecin. I need a doctor. Use this phrase when you are not feeling very well. If you are sick, you must see a doctor. Je ne retrouve pas le chemin jusqu'à mon hôtel. I can't find the way back to my hotel. Use this phrase when you are lost and can't go back to your hotel. In this situation, you can try to find a reputable store. Explain your situation to one of the employees and they will maybe help you. An offline map app is also useful. Y a-t-il une pharmacie dans le coin? Is there a pharmacy nearby? Use this phrase when you need to find a pharmacy without going too far. Do not hesitate to ask a shopkeeper around you. They might know better than the average person on the street. Pourriez-vous m'aider? Can you help me? Use this phrase when you need assistance and you want to ask someone. You can add excusez-moi, excuse me, at the beginning of the sentence to be more polite. Je suis perdu. I am lost. Use this phrase when you are lost. As I already said, do not hesitate to ask to someone like a storekeeper or a police officer to help you. J'ai besoin d'une ambulance. I need an ambulance. Use this phrase when you need an ambulance to come. Usually you can call 112, the European emergency number, even if you don't speak French.
Want to speak real French from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at FrenchPod101.com.
Want to finally start speaking in your target language? In this guide, you'll discover the top 7 ways to practice speaking on your own with our lessons. Let's begin. Number 1, shadowing. Shadowing is a proven learning technique where all you do is repeat what you hear in order to practice speaking. So access any audio or video lesson on the site and press the play button to start. Then, as you listen or watch, just repeat the conversations. Or, even easier, read along out loud with the dialogue section. The script is right there in front of you. With our lessons, you can master entire conversations, just like that. Number 2, read out loud. I just mentioned it, but reading out loud is another powerful tactic and deserves its own mention. With every lesson, you get written transcripts and translations. So, as you play the lesson, read the dialogue out loud as you hear it. Why? By reading out loud, you're also practicing your speaking skills. You can do this with the lesson notes, the lesson transcript, or the dialogue tool. With the dialogue tool, you can listen to each line again and again, and repeat out loud until you master them all. Number 3, speed up your reading to speed up your speaking. Being able to speak without thinking is a sign of language mastery. If you're talking to a native and can respond quickly, they'll assume that you're fairly fluent. How can you do this? When you read out loud, try increasing your speed a little bit every time. So, start by reading with the dialogue tool. If you're like most learners, you'll read the first line slowly. That's because you're still getting used to the words, which is okay. Reread it. On your second try, you know most of the words, and you'll read a little faster. Reread it again. On your third try, you'll be even faster, at a native speaker's speed. And being able to read these phrases out loud and fast will help you speak fast. Number 4, record and compare yourself with native speakers. In order to sound like a native speaker, you must imitate native speakers. So here's how. Access the voice recorder, which is in the dialogue study tool in every lesson. Click on the microphone icon. Listen to the native speaker's audio, and then record yourself. You can then compare the 2 recordings side by side, and practice and try again and again until you perfect your pronunciation. Number 5, get feedback from our Premium Plus teacher. If you're learning by yourself and don't have access to real teachers, then you can always get feedback from our Premium Plus teachers. With the My Teacher tool, you can record yourself speaking and send the audio file to the teacher. They'll review it and tell you what to improve and how. That's it. Number 6, level up your speaking with Premium Plus assignments. With Premium Plus, you can also get assignments that cover reading, writing, listening, and even speaking from your teacher. These assignments can be tailored to your goals and needs. You get a new one every week, or anytime you're ready for a new one. Number 7, get even more lessons in the lesson library. If you want even more lessons on speaking and conversations, visit our lesson library and under Category, choose Conversation. You'll get all of the pathways and lessons that are focused on speaking.
5 sentence patterns for beginners. Let's start. Je m'appelle. My name is. You can use this when you introduce yourself to others. Using this pattern, you can say Je m'appelle Claude, which means my name is Claude. Je suis de. I am from. Use this when people ask you where you're from or when you want to include it as a part of your self-introduction. Où est? Where is? Here we have où est, which means where is. For example, you can use it to say où est la gare, which means where is the station. It's very useful when you are lost in France. J'aime. I like. When you want to express that you like something, you can use this pattern. J'aime. In French, to like and to love are both translated with the verb aimer. If you want to sound less passionate, you can add the adjective bien. For example, j'aime bien le chocolat. If chocolate is really your thing, you can say j'adore le chocolat. Adorer is a verb we can translate as to love or to adore. In a sentence, you can say j'aime le chocolat to mean I like chocolate. Je n'aime pas. I don't like. You can use this pattern when you want to express that you don't like something. For example, you can say je n'aime pas les choux de Bruxelles, which means I don't like Brussels sprouts.
Top 10 language learning strategies. So let's begin. Liez-vous d'amitié ou mettez-vous en couple avec une personne française. Befriending or dating someone who speaks French. So I think that's a really great strategy to learn the language if you speak every day with a person that is your friend or your boyfriend. Regardez des films ou écoutez de la musique en français. Watching movies or listening to music in French. So I think it can help you to learn the language more easily if every day you watch some movies, even with subtitles. Like this, it helps you to see what is written and everything. Lisez des journaux français ou magazines français. Read French newspapers or French magazines. So that will help you very much with the language because you will see words that you've never seen before and eventually you can look them up in the dictionary and like this you can know what it means. Enregistrez votre voix et comparez votre prononciation avec des Français natifs. Record your voice and compare your pronunciation with native French speakers. So I think that really helps with the accent. Like this, you can hear how you sound. You can watch my videos again and like this you can compare how I speak with how you speak and you see if it matches or not. Téléchargez des pistes de dialogue et écoutez les conversations françaises. Download dialogue tracks and listen to French conversations. So that will really help you with the accents, you know, the way everybody talks. You will be able to learn new words and you will be able to, for example, if they ask a question, you're able to answer. Répétez les expressions que vous entendez à voix haute, encore et encore. Repeat the phrases that you hear out loud again and again. So I think that's a really good strategy in order to learn French, to repeat over and over again what you just listened to or what you just learned, because it will help you to have that in your mind and you'll be able to say it more easily. Revoyez toutes les leçons sur FrenchPod101.com pour les maîtriser complètement. Review all the lessons on FrenchPod101.com to master them completely. That will really help you to speak better French if you go back and review all the videos that I have done or other French native have done. And yeah, like this you will be able to master it really completely and you'll be able to use it in quite a few different situations. Lisez les phrases lentement au début, après relisez-les et augmentez votre vitesse. Read sentences slowly at first, then reread them and increase your speed. I think that's a really thing to do because at first you want to have the pronunciation right.
So it's better, to decompose the word little by little, and then when you're going to be more comfortable, you'll be able to say it like really quickly. Donnez-vous des petits et mesurables objectifs pour apprendre avec des dates limites propres. Set small and measurable learning goals with your personal deadlines. So I think that's really good if you give yourself some deadline, and do not try to learn too much at first, because you might just quit if you do that. So that's better if you give yourself, little by little to learn, and give yourself deadline as well. That's a really, really good thing to see if you improve or not. Essayez des leçons qui sont plus difficiles pour vous surpasser et vous améliorer rapidement. Try harder lessons to challenge yourself and improve faster. So at first you're going to learn those quick and simple words, but then you want to challenge yourself and learn more complex sentences, for example. So that's better if you try to learn harder lessons.
Computer words. I don't know anything about computer, come on. So, computer words, let's go. Clavier, keyboard. Taper un texte avec le clavier. Type text on keyboard. It's the same word as piano and everything that has touche. Those little squares. Buttons, yeah. What am I saying? Souris, mouse. Same as English, the mouse is also the little animal. So, souris. Cliquez avec la souris. Click with the mouse. Next one is casque audio. Casque audio is headphones, so listening music with my headphones. Écouter de la musique dans le casque audio. You can also just say casque, you don't have to add the audio at the end. Monitor, monitor. Oh. Oh. Regarder un film sur le moniteur. Watching a movie on the monitor. Like because I like movies. Imprimante. Imprimante is a printer, so imprimer avec l'imprimante, print with a printer. So that works. Jobs. Hey, that's a nice one. So jobs. First job is infirmière. Nurse. Mon père est infirmier. My dad is a nurse. Which is true. Hi. Infirmière is for women and infirmier will be for men. Officier de police. Police officer. Or you can just say policier. Ce policier est trop méchant. This police officer is so mean. C'est un gentil officier de police. It's a nice police officer. He showed me the way and stuff. Employé de bureau. Office worker. It looks boring being an office worker. Je suis employé de bureau. I'm an office worker. Simple. Next one. Ingénieur. Engineer. Wouldn't it be nice to marry an engineer? Ce serait plutôt sympa de se marier avec un ingénieur, non? Yeah, I said something nice. Great. Programmeur, which is programmer. I thought we did computer word already. Le programmeur programme un programme. The programmer is programming a program. 3 times the same word, you can use it easily. Et le programmeur fait un jeu. The programmer is making a game, which will be super nice. So, hi and welcome back to Weekly French Word. This week's theme is the weather. This should be nice. First word is chaud. Chaud is warm. Aujourd'hui, il fait chaud. Today is warm, which is true. Next one is clair, clear. Clair is also used for light, like clair is a lot of light. But also the weather is good and no cloud and stuff like this. Le temps est clair, the weather is clear. Next one, ensoleillé, sunny. If you study well the last week words, la ville de Nice est ensoleillée. Nice is sunny. Do you remember it? It also works. So, Nice est une ville ensoleillée. Nice is a sunny city. Next one. Next one is humid, humid. It's humid in my room. Dans ma chambre, il fait humide. Which happens a lot in France. Next one is Nuageux, cloudy. The weather outside is cloudy. That's not it. In north of France, the weather outside is cloudy. Dans le nord de la France, le temps est souvent nuageux. It's often cloudy. So yeah, the end. So see you next week for the French word of the week. And don't forget to check the website to get more words and more explanation. And don't forget to come back next week. See you!
Hey guys, my name is Pierre and I'm from France and welcome to this lesson. Today's lesson will be about what not to pronounce in French. You know, French is really annoying. The way you say it and the way you write it, it's really different. And I'm here to show you that it's not that hard if you know the basics. So first, I would like to introduce you to the common silent letters. First, there is this letter, H. This is maybe the most common one. In French, H has no pronunciation. There is no aspiration, unlike English. When you see H alone, it's always silent in French. For example, in homme, which means man, you don't say the H. Same for haricot, which means beans, or for e, which is the French way to say when you're hesitating. Then there is this combination, CH, and when there is this combination, you have to say it. It's almost never silent. For example, cheval, which means horse, and then échec, which means chess. But of course, in French, there are many exceptions, and those two words are exceptions. Écho, which means echo, like in English, and choral, which means choral, like in English. H is silent here. You have to say just the C, écho, choral. Don't focus too much on those exceptions, because usually it's always never silent, but if you really want some examples, just try to remember those two, because maybe they are the most common ones, but don't focus too much on exceptions again. Then let's move on to the next letter, which is OR. This letter is quite like never silent, but in some cases, like when you see the combination ER in verbs, you have not to say the OR. It's always silent. For example, in the verb manger, which means eat, or parler, to speak, you have not to say the OR. It's always that for the verbs, which are with ER. Then you've got some other words that are using the same rule, like premier. Just try to remember this one. It means first. And here, you don't have to say the OR. Let's move on to the next letter, which is X. This one is really easy. There are 3 patterns that you have to remember, and then after that, you're done. It's really easy. Those patterns are OUA, O, E. You see, I don't say the X. OUA, O, E. It's always silent. Here are some examples. Voice, voix in French, no X. Oiseau, which is the plural for birds, so like many birds. Usually you don't have X, but here it's like a plural, the plural form. And then heureux, which is the adjective for happy. Many adjectives have this termination, and you have to say it, and you have not to say X. Let's move on to the next category, which is STPD category. It's almost always silence when it's at the end of a word. To remember that, here is a kind of little trick for you. You can think that French is stupid. And in this word, you see all the letters that are almost always silent. S-T-P-D. Stupid. So here is an example. Le petit loup est méchant, which means the little wolf is nasty. So here there is petit, you don't say the T. Loup, you don't say the P. Est, which is kind of an exception. Here you see S and T, and you don't have to say it just for the verb to be. So just remember that when you see EST, this is a common question, don't say the S and T. But usually when you see the word est, which means east, you have to say it. So this rule is only when you see one letter at the end. When you see more than two letters, this is different. And then there is méchant, T. You don't say the T. But of course, there are exceptions. And here are the two main exceptions that you have to remember. When you say son, fils, you have to say the S. And then there is this little tricky word, plus. Sometimes, plus, you don't say it, you don't say the S. But when you say when you say the word plus, as more, you mean more, you have to say it, plus. So when there is the S, it means more. When there is not this S, like when you say just plus, but it's the same writing, you don't, it means less. So this is a kind of tricky word. And then there is this combination with S. S is often the mark of the plural, but sometimes it's not, and you also don't have to pronunciate when you add it after P, T, or D. So here are some examples. Temps, which means time. Debout, which is the plural form for pieces. Debout, you add the S because of the plural, and you don't say T or S. And then there is D, tu prends, which is you take. And always when you conjugate verbs, you often have D and S, and you don't say it. So these are the main letters that are silent. STPD, French is stupid. Then you've got some letters that are sometimes silent, sometimes they are not. So you just have to remember which words are like that. Those letters are B, C, F, G, J, L, Z. So here are some examples, like maybe the main ones. Just try to remember them, and then only experience will help you to know which word are not silent. Plomb, which means plumb, you don't say the B. Like the B is quite rare. Usually you don't have words with B at the end of the word. Then you have por, which means pork or pig. There is the C, and you don't say it, porc. Then this adjective, gentil, with the L, you don't say it, but usually words that ends with an L, you have to say it. So this one is really a big exception, gentil. Clé et serre, key and dear. There is an F, but you don't say it. But many words, you have to say the F. So remember that. Then for J, long, it means long. So in English, you have to say the G. In French, you don't say it. And then this one, Z, you often not say it in French, but sometimes you have to say it. Here, you don't say it. Chez, which means like, I'm going to my place. I'm going to your place. To, translation for to. Nez, which means nose. Riz, for rice. And assez, for enough. So here are some examples that you have to remember. So far we've seen 5 different patterns. H or X if you see H alone, or in ER only in verbs, and in the adjective premier, and X in those 3 patterns, oua, o, e. You have to be silent. You don't say those letters. So this is the 3 letters that are important for you to remember. And then there is S, T, P, and D, which is almost always silent. So this is the main one that you have to remember, in addition to those ones. S, T, P, and D. French is stupid. And then you've got those letters that are more tricky, B, C, F, J, L, Z. And you have to remember some examples. And if you really have to remember one category, I think you should really remember with the D, because there are many words with these exceptions. Let's move on to the training part. Here are some sentences. I'm going to read them, and you will see which letters are not or silent. Try by yourself before I'm gonna say it. So here is the first one. Did you try? Okay, the answer is ils ne sont pas assez grands. Ils ne sont pas assez grands. So here, there is this S that is silent, and there is this T, and this S is not silent due to the liaison, which is introduced by this vowel A. In the next lesson, I'm gonna deal with the French liaison, so don't worry about that. For now, it's only common silent letters. So you have to say it here, but usually it's silent, so don't worry for that. And then there is the Z and the D and S that are silent. Ils ne sont pas assez grands, which means they are not big enough. Ils ne sont pas assez grands. Let's move on to the next one. Did you try? Okay. The answer is je suis heureux d'être amoureux. Je suis heureux d'être amoureux. So here, again, there is a liaison because H is silent and here there is a vowel, but don't worry about that. Here, X and X, you don't have to say it. Je suis heureux d'être amoureux. It means I'm happy to be in love. I'm happy to be in love. Je suis heureux d'être amoureux. Next one, this one, is a bit longer. Try by yourself. The answer is les chevaux courent plus vite que les bœufs. Les chevaux courent plus vite que les bœufs. Les chevaux courent plus vite que les bœufs. Here, there is an S. You don't say it. Here, there is an X. You don't say it. The T here, the S here. Even though it means more, you don't say it. Because here, there is an adjective after that, and when you say plus with an adjective, plus with an adjective, if there is no vowel, you don't say it. So here, plus vite. This S, and then B. You don't say the F and you don't say the S. But please be careful. When there is no S at the end of B, you have to say the F, bœuf. But here, you don't say it. This sentence means the horses run faster than the cows, which is in French, les chevaux courent plus vite que les bœufs. Then there is this sentence. Try by yourself. The answer is mes cheveux sont trop longs. Mes cheveux sont trop longs. It means my hair are too long. And here, all the words have a silent letters. Mes cheveux sont trop longs. Mes cheveux sont trop longs. And this one now, try by yourself. J'ai pris plus de temps que prévu. J'ai pris plus de temps que prévu. So here there is this silent S, but here you have to say it. J'ai pris plus de temps, more time. So you have to say it. It's different, even though here it's more, but it's with an adjective. Here it's plus alone. So you have to say it because it means more. Then there is temps, PNS, you don't say it, and this is fine. J'ai pris plus de temps que prévu. I took more time than expected. J'ai pris plus de temps que prévu. Then the last one, try by yourself. This one is a little bit tricky. So the answer is, à l'est du parc, il y a des noix qui ont poussé. À l'est du parc, il y a des noix qui ont poussé. So here you can see that I have to say est because it's not the verb to be. It's not the verb être. It's est. So in French you have to say SNT here. So à l'est. À l'est du parc. Here again there is a C, but you have to say it. This is not one of the words I wanted you to remember. So parc, you have to say it. Il y a des, you don't say it. Noix, here again there is the pattern OIX, so you don't say it. Qui ont, here there is this silent T. And then, pousser. À l'est du parc, il y a des noix qui ont poussé. At the eastern part of the park, some nuts started to grow. À l'est du parc, il y a des noix qui ont poussé. So did you try and did you manage to do it? It's okay if you don't have a perfect score. Just it's practice. You need to learn, and it's like it's normal to fail. So you can watch this video again and try the sentences again and remember all those patterns. Next lesson, I will introduce you to the French liaison. But for now, it's only silent letters. That's all for today. If you like the video, please leave a comment on the sections below, or you can hit the like button or share this video with your friends. If you haven't subscribed yet, you can do it. The button is down below. And if you want some more resources on learning French, go to our website, FrenchPod101.com. You will see many French lessons, and I hope to see you again for more French lessons. Bye, guys.
And this week is gonna be 10 lines you need for introducing yourself. Here we go. Comment t'appelles-tu? What's your name? Bonjour, comment t'appelles-tu? Hello, what's your name? Es-tu déjà allé en France? Have you been to France? So yeah, people will be like, es-tu déjà allé en France? And then you can answer, no, it's my first time. So non, c'est ma première fois. Comment vas-tu? How are you? How you doing? Comment vas-tu? When you meet someone in the morning, you're like, hey, hi, how you doing? Hey, salut, comment vas-tu? Or, comment ça va? Usually when you're speaking with friends, it's comment ça va? So, hey, comment ça va? Ça va bien? Something like that. Aimes-tu la cuisine française? Do you like French food? Come on, everyone likes French food. It's the bestest in the world. So tell me in the comment if you like French food and what's your favorite French food, because we got plenty of it. My favorite French food is croissant. You can have them for breakfast. They are buttery and yummy and crunchy and everything. C'est quand votre anniversaire? When is your birthday? This one is quite polite, and if you want to use a less formal version, it would be c'est quand ton anniversaire? My birthday is. Mon anniversaire est. Dun, dun, dun. D'où venez-vous? Where are you from? I'm from France! So, d'où venez-vous? Where are you from? Well, obviously I'm from France. Where are you from? Où as-tu appris le français? Where did you learn French? On FrenchPod101.com. That's what you are here. So if you are really good and speak French to people pretty easily, they will be like, oh, où as-tu appris le français? Where do you learn French? Tell them you watch Lia's video. Où habitez-vous? Where do you live? Where do you guys live? So yeah, if you are traveling to France, this will also be a question you will commonly be asked. So, où habitez-vous? I live in America. Où sont les toilettes? Where is the bathroom? This is an important sentence to know when you are going to a restaurant or wherever in the metro. Don't go to the toilet in the metro because first you have to pay for it, then it's super dirty. Toilette in French, it's a plural noun because you have to look for many toilets before finding one that's clean. That's what we say in French. So yeah, don't hesitate to ask, but maybe you will be surprised. Où sont les toilettes? Où travaillez-vous? Where do you work? Or, où travailles-tu? For the more casual version. Je travaille en tant que designer. I work as a designer. This is fancy to say, so just go with it. Yeah. So that's it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe wherever it is and go to the website to learn more French. See you next time. Bye. Nice. Nice, nice, baby.
Hi everybody, Candice here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I answer your most common French questions. The question for this lesson is, what are some popular French idioms? In English, we have our fair share of idioms like, it's raining cats and dogs, or even, what's up? They might not make much sense literally, but they are commonly used in everyday conversation. French, of course, has them too, And here are some examples. Faire la tête means to sulk, but its literal translation is actually to do the head. It's used when someone isn't happy about something and in a bad mood. For example, elle a fait la tête toute la journée. She sulked all day. We also have coup de foudre, which literally means a strike of lightning. But as an idiom, it means love at first sight. Pretty fitting, actually. Ça marche is one you'll come across every day. Marcher means to walk, but ça marche means that works. English speakers might recognize this following one. Il fait un temps de chien, literally, it's a dog weather. It means, as you might have guessed, it's terrible weather. Here's a funny one. Arriver comme un cheveu sur la soupe. It literally means to arrive like a hair in the soup. This is about entering a situation at the worst possible moment. It can also mean arriving suddenly, by chance. Another idiom that uses food is mettre son grain de sel, literally, to put one's grain of salt. It's an idiom that means to give an unnecessary opinion. Donner sa langue au chat literally means to give one's tongue to the cat, but it actually means to give up. For example, if someone asks you to guess something and you have no idea what the answer is. Another one that doesn't make much sense, but you'll often hear is faire la grasse matinée, which literally means to do a fat morning, but people use it to say they slept in. Ça coûte les yeux de la tête, which means it's ridiculously expensive, but literally means it costs the eyes out of the head. There you go! Try them out. If you have any more questions, please leave them in the comments below and I try to answer them. À bientôt! Hi everybody, Candice here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I answer your most common French questions. The question for this lesson is, how do you know when to use le passé composé or l'imparfait? There are two commonly used past tenses in French. Le passé composé, the past perfect, and l'imparfait, the imperfect. Le passé composé is made up of an auxiliary verb, either être, meaning to be, or avoir, to have, plus the main verb in the participe passé or past participle form. L'imparfait just uses the main verb in the imperfect form. Let's do some examples so you can learn how to use le passé composé and l'imparfait correctly. When telling a story in the past, le passé composé is used for the sequence of events. These are specific events that happened at a certain time, like j'ai mangé une pomme, meaning I ate an apple. L'imparfait is used for describing context or circumstances that happened within that time frame. For example, je mangeais une pomme. I was eating an apple. You'll often use l'imparfait and le passé composé together in the same sentence. L'imparfait illustrates the context, and le passé composé is the disruption of an action. For example, this sentence uses both. Je mangeais une pomme quand Loïc a appelé, meaning I was eating an apple when Loïc called. Je mangeais une pomme sets the scene. I was eating an apple. Quand means when, that's the interruption. The interruption is a time-specific event, so we use le passé composé. Loïc a appelé, meaning Loïc called. That's it for this lesson. I hope I helped clear things up. If you have any more questions, please leave them in the comments below and I try to answer them. À bientôt! Hi everybody, Candice here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I answer your most common French questions. The question for this lesson is, how do you use adjectives as nouns? In French, we can omit the noun and use the adjective as the noun. Does that sound confusing? Let's do some examples. Let's say you're at a furniture store and you want to buy a chair. If you're looking at a bunch of different colored chairs, we can use la chaise bleue to refer to the blue chair. However, in this case, we've already mentioned the chairs and their colors. So we can just say la bleue, which means the blue one. By using an article with an adjective, you can make it a noun. In this case, we used la because la chaise, the chair, is feminine. Then we added the feminine adjective bleu to make la bleue, to stand for the blue chair. Likewise, if you're discussing different colored hats, you'll use the masculine noun chapeau. That means we have to change la to the masculine article le and change bleu to match. Then, if you would like to buy the blue hat, you would say le bleu s'il vous plaît, the blue one please. Superlatives can also become nouns in French. Apart from the direct translation of the best, which is le meilleur or la meilleure, you can use any adjective plus an article plus either plus for most or moins for least to make a superlative sentence. Plus on its own means more, but with an article it means most. Take le plus grand, for example. Grand means big. So, le plus grand means the big one in general. But if you said le plus grand, that means the biggest one. Similarly to plus, moins means less on its own, but least with an article. La moins vite, for example, literally means the least fast one, or more naturally, the slowest. It's important to note that because we use la in this sentence, we know that we're talking about a feminine noun. If we were talking about a masculine noun, the sentence will be le moins vite and mean the same thing. And that's it. Was I able to answer your question? If you have any more questions, please leave them in the comments below and I try to answer them. À bientôt! Hi everybody, Candice here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I answer your most common French questions. The question for this lesson is, for units of time, like jour and an, when are they masculine and where are they feminine? You've probably seen both masculine and feminine forms of day, jour and journée, and year, an and année. So how do you know which gender to use? Well, the general rule is that the masculine forms are for counting and the feminine forms are for emphasizing the duration of an action. Let's go through some examples so you can learn how to use the masculine and feminine forms for units of time correctly. Let's start with years. J'ai passé 10 ans aux États-Unis. I spent 10 years in the US. In this sentence, we are simply counting the number of years, so we use the masculine en for years. Let's do another example. If we say, j'ai passé 10 merveilleuses années aux États-Unis, meaning, I have spent 10 wonderful years in the US, we're using the adjective wonderful and putting emphasis on the duration of time spent. Therefore, we use année, years, in the feminine form. Let's practice some more with days. J'ai 2 jours de repos. I have 2 days off. Again here, we're simply counting the number of days off. So, we use jour, the masculine form of day. If we say j'ai 2 journées de repos, also meaning I have 2 days off, then we're emphasizing the time off, implying that we have time to do a lot of things. There are some cases when it doesn't matter which gender you use. That's when you're talking about last year or next year. Both l'an dernier and l'année dernière work for last year, and the same with next year, using prochain for masculine or prochaine for feminine. Okay, I hope that clears things up. If you have any more questions, please leave them in the comments below, and I try to answer them. À bientôt. See you soon. Hi everybody, Candice here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I answer your most common French questions. The question for this lesson is, what is ça and how do you use it? Ça is a pronoun and the informal word for cela, which means it or that. Let's practice some expressions so you can learn how to use ça correctly. The expression ça te dit literally means, does it say something to you? It's used to ask, does that sound good to you? For example, ça te dit d'aller voir un film? Does going to see a film sound good to you? In response, you can say, ça ne me dit pas vraiment, which means, I don't really feel like doing that. If it does sound good, then you say something like, oui, or bien sûr, yes, or of course, respectively. On the other hand, ça me dit quelque chose. Literally, this says something to me, usually means that rings a bell. The opposite will be ça ne me dit rien, literally meaning this doesn't say anything to me, or that doesn't ring a bell. Another common expression is ça alors. It means something like how about that? And it can be used in both positive and negative ways. For example, a friend tells you he's moving to Senegal. You might respond, ça alors, c'est super. How about that? That's awesome. Here's another scenario. Your friend tells you he has tons of work to do. Then you see him at the beach. You can say, ça alors, how about that? With a negative connotation. You might also hear c'est ça, that means that's it, in the sense of you got it or I got it, depending on who you're talking about. Ça y est also means that's it, though it's more along the lines of finally, as in ça y est, j'ai fini. That's it, finally, I'm done. You can also add ça before c'est to add emphasis. For example, c'est beau means it's beautiful. But if someone says ça c'est beau, then they really, really mean it. And that's it for this lesson. I hope I answered your question. If you have any more questions, please leave them in the comments below and I try to answer them. À bientôt. Hi everybody, Candice here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I answer your most common French questions. The question for this lesson is, what are the main differences between written and spoken French? Written French and spoken French can seem completely different. A lot of grammar is relaxed in spoken French, so sometimes you might have trouble recognizing a phrase even if you already know it. For instance, abbreviations are extremely common in spoken French. It goes beyond dropping the E of je in front of vowels such as j'ai, which is I have, or l'année, which is the year. Among the most common spoken abbreviation is t'es for tu es, which means you are. So instead of tu es jolie for you're cute, you hear t'es jolie. Similarly, tu as, you have, is often shortened to ta. Another common omission is the ne in negative sentences. In writing, the correct way to say I have no money is je n'ai pas d'argent. In casual spoken French, you can just say j'ai pas d'argent. Here's another example. Ce n'est pas grave means no problem or it's not a big deal. Spoken, we usually say c'est pas grave. When people talk quickly, it can even sound like c'est pas grave, so you might not even hear the c'est. One more example is je ne peux pas, meaning I can't, can become je peux pas, but we can make it shorter and more casual by dropping the e, je peux pas. Some grammatical structures are more common in spoken French too. For instance, questions are usually shorter and more direct. Instead of saying the full qu'est-ce que tu as fait for what did you do, you probably hear t'as fait quoi, which literally translates to you did what? Another common spoken sentence structure is adding a pronoun at the beginning for emphasis. For example, If you want to emphasize your personal opinion, you could say moi je pense. Literally, that means me, I think. In English, it's something like as for me. Here's another example. If you're talking about your family's plans for the weekend, you can add nous for emphasis. Nous allons à la plage. Us, or us for us, we're going to the beach. There we go! I hope that clears things up. In another lesson, we'll go over le verlan, which is a form of French spoken slang. If you have other questions, please leave them in the comments and I try to answer them. À bientôt! Hi everybody, Candice here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer your most common French questions. The question for this lesson is, what are the types of questions in French and how do I make them? There are 3 different question forms in French: colloquial, standard, and formal. The colloquial form is the simplest. You take a statement like tu rentres chez toi or you're going back home and simply raise your tone at the end of the sentence to make it a question. Tu rentres chez toi? You're going back home? Because it's colloquial, it's mostly used in casual conversational settings or between people who have a friendly relationship. If you saw it written, it might be part of a script or dialogue. The standard oral and written question form uses est-ce que. Putting est-ce que at the beginning of a sentence indicates that it's a question. For the previous example, you'd say est-ce que tu rentres chez toi? Are you going back home? You can use this standard question structure in any setting, formal or casual, written or spoken. A variation of est-ce que is qu'est-ce que, with an abbreviated que in front. It's basically the English what at the beginning of a sentence. For example, qu'est-ce qu'on va faire demain means what are we doing tomorrow? For other types of questions, you can replace que with pourquoi, quand, or où. For example, quand est-ce que tu viens? When are you coming? Pourquoi est-ce qu'il est triste? Why is he sad? Or, où est-ce qu'elle a étudié? Where did she study? Lastly, there's the formal question form. This is appropriate in very formal settings and in literary writing, but would be pretty weird in casual settings. In this form, you switch the verb and the pronoun around. In this register, you probably wouldn't be using tu. So in the previous example, are you going back home? It will be rentrez-vous chez vous with the polite vous address. Another example is que fait-il? For what does he do? Or avez-vous fini? Which is a polite way to ask have you finished? In the est-ce que form, you would say qu'est-ce qu'il fait? And est-ce que vous avez fini? The casual way to say what does he do would be il fait quoi? And for have you finished? It would be vous avez fini? But remember, est-ce que is acceptable in most formal situations, and the colloquial form is what you will be using in most casual situations. So you shouldn't need to use the formal question form much. Okay, that's it. I hope that clarifies some things. If you have other questions, please leave them in the comments and I try to answer them. À bientôt! Hi everybody, Candice here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I answer your most common French questions. The question for this lesson is, what does si mean and how do you use it? Si has 2 main meanings. The first meaning is if, and the second one is yes, but only to negative questions. Let's go over if first. If you want to say, if you come to the party, Madeleine will come too. You use si. Si tu viens à la fête, Madeleine vient aussi. A common expression using si is si tu veux, meaning if you want. For example, si tu veux, on y va ensemble. If you want, we'll go there together. Note that if you use si with il or il plural, you abbreviate it to seal and seal to avoid repeating the same letter. So with il, the expression is s'il veut, je peux cuisiner. If he wants, I can cook. The other meaning of si is a little trickier, but I'm sure you'll get it in no time. You know questions that have negative phrasing like won't you be cold or aren't you coming? In English, if your answer is yes, you'd say something like yes, I'm coming or actually yes, I will be cold. In French, yes in response to a negative question is different from a yes to a positive question. Are you coming or tu viens is a positive question. If you answer yes, you would answer oui. On the other hand, if someone asks you, aren't you coming? And your answer is still yes, then you will say si. Tu ne viens pas chez nous? Aren't you coming over to our place? Is a negative question, so you'd respond si je viens. Yes, I'm coming. In a way, si puts yes and no into one word. It's kind of like saying, no, what you just say is wrong, but yes, I'm agreeing. Here are a couple more examples. Il ne va pas nettoyer la cuisine? Isn't he going to clean the kitchen? And si, il va la nettoyer. Yes, he'll clean it. Or this one, tu n'es pas malade? Aren't you sick? And si, mais c'est un petit rhume. Yes, but it's a small cold. How was it? Did I help clear things up? If you have any more questions, please leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. À bientôt!
Hey guys, it's Pierre from France and welcome back for a new video, this time about French food. Top 10 French dishes and related vocabulary. This is today's topic, so it would be less about grammar but more about like food and good stuff. So without further ado, let's get started with some food. And the first one, the most famous food here is fromage. Le fromage, cheese in French. This is really important in France. We eat a lot of cheese and it's not like any kind of cheese. You know, when you eat in France, you can do a full course, which means you do entrée, plat, fromage, dessert. It means like first course, main dish, cheese, dessert. So this is quite common to do that in France. And personally, with my family, I do that every day. So you start with some entrée, like salads or tomatoes, and then you've got the main dish, and then some cheese. And that's what is interesting here. You can eat like any kind of cheese. Usually you add bread with it, but you eat your cheese like that. And there are many, many different kind of cheese in France. And usually it's original stuff. It means like, depending on where you are in France, so this is a super nice map of the France nation. And then depending on where you are, you will find some famous cheeses. And like the most famous one, you can find them everywhere, but some of them are really difficult to find sometimes. So there are many different kinds of cheese. Here are some adjectives that you can use to describe cheese. Le fromage est dur, like the cheese is hard. Sometimes the cheese is hard, it's dur. Sometimes it's soft. Le fromage est mou, c'est un fromage mou, mou. Or sometimes it's creamy. Fromage crémeux, un fromage crémeux, creamy. And also, you know, cheese, French cheese is sometimes really smelly. And you have to say in French, le fromage sent fort, like a strong smell. It's smelly. You say that usually in France. Le fromage sent fort. Le fromage sent fort. And I would like you to know more about two different cheese that are quite famous. And the first one is personally my favorite. Le comté. Comté. Comté is from this region in France, Franche-Comté, which you can notice is the name of the region. Franche-Comté, Comté, same. So here is a map of France, and Franche-Comté is somewhere here. So 1A stands for this, Comté. So this is really good, and this is a hard cheese, un fromage dur. And then you've got this one, Camembert, also quite famous, which is from Normandy. Normandy is over there. This cheese is more creamy than Comté. Like around the cheese, it's quite hard, but when you cut it, it's creamy inside and really good. And the more smelly it is, the more creamy it is. So here are for some cheese. Of course, there are so many cheeses. You can check by yourself for more cheeses. Let's move on to the next one. Bread, or in French, pain. You probably all know this cliché about France, baguette. Like all French people are always with their baguette under their arms. But it's not a cliché. Like personally, I used to buy a baguette every day. Like not all French people are doing that, but personally, I do that. So yeah, that's the most common bread in France, and my favorite personally, baguette. This, I guess you all know what is a baguette. So this. And usually you go to a bread shop called boulangerie in France. And boulangerie, you can find them like almost everywhere in France. It's really common. And that's why I can buy my bread every day by going there. But in boulangerie, you can also find some croissant or other kinds of bread. Here are two other kinds of breads that are quite common. I guess this one is the second most common, pain de campagne. Pain de campagne. It's like a kind of bowl, you see? And in English, maybe you would say farmhouse bread. So in French, pain de campagne. Like campagne, pain de campagne. So those two are quite famous, and you can find them in almost all boulangerie, all bread shop. So this is quite common. And here is like what you can call sandwich bread in America, but in France you have to say pain de mie. And it's quite different, like those two are really hard. Like you remember, we can also use this adjective for bread. Like this is quite hard, but here it's really soft, and you all know, you can find that everywhere in the world. Like when you say that, like to me, it's not like real bread. Like for me, when you say bread, those two breads appear in my mind. So this is not bread, and usually you can do sandwich with that. But in France, you use usually baguette or pain de campagne if you want to do some sandwiches. And I really like doing sandwiches with a baguette. This is so good, and you should try it. So this is bread, and maybe you wonder how we eat the bread. So first I said like sometimes sandwiches, but that's not the most common way. We eat it during the fromage step, like we eat cheese and bread, like it's classic. You have your piece of cheese and a piece of bread, and you eat them together. But you can also eat them for breakfast, and you put some jam and some butter, and you eat that. This is quite common in France. Or sometimes you drink that with your cup of coffee. You've got your bread and your coffee, and you just eat them together. And also, when it's the time for the main dish, for the plat, you have some pieces of bread, usually like on the table, and you can eat them like that. Like it's really common. Like I think it's a bit similar to rice in Asian countries. Here, bread you eat, like you can eat bread at any moment during your meal, especially during the main dish. So this is bread. Those two were quite general food, but now I would like to talk about more regional food. That's why I decided to draw a map. So here are some other foods that are regional food. Like French food is really regional. So let's first start with bœuf bourguignon. Bœuf bourguignon. It's from the region called Bourgogne. You probably know this region. Like in English you say Burgundy. And this is quite famous for white wine. And it's over here. So here is the Bourgogne region, Burgundy, and like this plate is quite famous over there, but you can eat that everywhere in France, but originally it's from this region. So it consists in a beef stewed in red wine. So if you want to explain that in French, you would say bœuf mijoté au vin rouge. Bœuf mijoté au vin rouge. Bœuf stands for beef, mijoté is like stewed, and vin rouge, red wine. Bœuf mijoté au vin rouge. And usually you add, with your beef, you add some other ingredients, like pomme de terre, which is potatoes, onions, like onion, and some carrots, carrot. So these are the main ingredients that you can find when you cook a bœuf bourguignon. This is quite famous in France. And next one, let's move on to another region, this region is called Lorraine, and this food is called quiche, or sometimes quiche Lorraine. Quiche Lorraine is a specific kind of quiche, but probably the most famous one. And Lorraine is this region. So here you can find quiche, or quiche Lorraine. It consists in a tart, like that, and you cook the tart with eggs and cream, and you add also on top of it cheese and some bacons, but you can choose other ingredients, but that's the common recipe. So in French you would say tarte avec des œufs, de la crème, du fromage et des lardons. Tarte avec des œufs, de la crème, du fromage et des lardons. So here tarte, tart, quite easy, œuf, eggs, cream, cheese, I forgot to write it here in English, but you have to say fromage is cheese, and here lardon, bacon, some sort of bacon. It's not like the exact translation, but in France it's a really specific kind of bacon, like usually it's some matches of meat. So here is like this, the quiche, and usually you can eat that like when it's hot, but you can, after cooking it, you can just wait and eat it cold, and it is quite good as well. So it's up to you, you can choose. So let's move on to the next one. This is gratin dauphinois, like from the southeast region, and maybe if you know the name of the city, Grenoble, which is close to Lyon, over there, you can find this plate, quite famous. But personally, I'm not from this region, and I can eat like gratin dauphinois. It's quite a common plate, so you don't need to go there if you want to try a gratin dauphinois. It consists in some pommes de terre, so you remember, potatoes, and you slice them, like tranché, pommes de terre tranché, sliced potatoes, and you cook them, you bake them in milk, like dans du lait. Pommes de terre tranchées et cuites dans du lait. Cuites dans du lait, baked in milk. So here is some kind of drawing. You see the plate, and here are all the sliced potatoes, and you just add milk and of course some salt and sometimes peppers, and it's up to you, but this is the classic recipe. You add milk and then you just bake that and you've got your meal. Gratin dauphinois, it's quite easy but quite good, and you should try it if you can have the opportunity to find it. Let's move on to the next one, which is ratatouille. You probably all know the movie Ratatouille, the Disney movie, but it's a name, this is the name of a plate in France, and it's from Provence. Provence is a region over here. So number 6 is over here. 6. Like it's close to Nice, if you know the name of the city. Nice. Ratatouille is like something you eat more in summer, but it's hot. It consists in some stew, like it's a stewed vegetables dish. So in French you would say ragoût de légumes. Ragoût de légumes. So ragoût stands for stewed, and légumes stands for vegetables. And here are the classic vegetables you're going to use if you want to do like a classic and like an authentic ratatouille, you need to know all those ingredients if you want to be real French, like for your own ratatouille. The 5 main ingredients in ratatouille are those ones. First is tomate, tomato, tomate, tomate. Then courgette, which means zucchini, courgette. Then aubergine, aubergine, eggplant, aubergine. Then onion, we've seen this one before. Onion, in French, oignon, oignon, oignon. A bit different. And then garlic, which is in French, ail, ail. Short word, ail. Okay? So those 5 ingredients are always in a classic ratatouille. So let's move on to the next one, which is, I'm sure you know it, crêpe, from the region over there, which is Bretagne. Bretagne. So maybe you know like sweet crêpe, like you add some sugar or some jam or anything, but here is a bit different. This is crêpe salée, which is salted crêpe or crêpes, salted crêpes. Crêpe salée, crêpe salée. The main difference with like a sweet crêpe is that you use buckwheat, which is in French sarrasin, sarrasin. So you cook your crêpes with this sarrasin, and you can call it as well crêpe sarrasin, crêpe au sarrasin, crêpe au sarrasin. So you can say that. And you eat that like as a main dish, and it's not a dessert, like it's a main dish. And the classic crêpe, like the classic crêpe salée, would be with jambon, œuf, fromage, like crêpe, jambon, œuf, fromage, crêpe, jambon, œuf, fromage, which means like crêpe, like ham, egg, cheese, crêpe. So you can say that like in restaurants, in many restaurants, like not only here, but like over there, that was really good. But in every restaurant where you can have crêpe, there is always this classic, like jambon, œuf, fromage, jambon, œuf, fromage. So yeah, jambon is ham, œuf is egg, and fromage is cheese. We've seen that before. And here is like a kind of drawing. Here is like the folded crepe. And here is in red the yolk and like some ingredients over there. But like you can, like there are some specialized shops which are called crêperies, crêperies, crêperie, crêperie. This is like a crepe shop, and it's really common over there, and even though in all France, in the whole France, and over there you can like have your main dish, your plat, which is a crepe, like a salted crepe, and then for your dessert you can have your sweet crepe. And in those shops, like there are many different kind of crepe, and there is this classic, but you can also find like with salmon, with chorizo or mushrooms. You can find a lot of different kind of crepe. So you should try it. And it's not like a plate that you try once and that's it. That's a plate that you can try a lot of times because it's always different. And then let's move on to another one, raclette, which is not originally a French food. This is from Switzerland, here. But the influence of this plate was quite important, and it's really famous in France, in whole France now. But in this region, it was really famous. Like it's a plate that is supposed to be eaten by people living in mountains. So over there is like there are a lot of mountains, and this is a classic plate. So like if you ask French people, they would probably say that raclette is something French, because we like eating raclette in winter. Raclette is the name of the plate, but also the name of the specific cheese that you use when you do a raclette. Like it is, the raclette consists in putting some cheese, like some melted cheese, on some potato. So here it's your plate. There is this potato, and you add this melted cheese on it. So this is like the base, but you don't eat like that. Usually you eat like a lot of potato. Like it's kind of social activity where you take your potato, like there is a plate with potato, each person take the potato and then add the cheese on it, and you do that like a lot of times, and you discuss with people. So this is like a really social plate. And usually you eat that with charcuterie, which is a kind of like a lot of hams, like sausage or ham, and like a lot of meat. We have two different ways to say sausage in French. You can say saucisse sometimes, or saucisson, which are two different kind of sausages. And you can buy all that in a boucher. You can go to the boucher, and if you go there, you can buy all that. It is called in English like butcher's shop, and yeah, like it's also quite common in France, and you can eat charcuterie. So charcuterie is almost always mixed with raclette, but like it's also something that we like eating like for as an entrée, first course. Like you've got a plate with some ham, some sausage, and you can eat that together. So yeah, that's quite common, and usually that's one of the most favorite food for French people. Like it's not a real meal, like you don't cook a lot, but like it's a plate with a lot of different kind of meat, and a lot of French people like it. And the last one, let's move on to the last one, which is from Paris and a quite recent dish. It is named hachis parmentier. At the end of the 19th century, the potatoes in France were supposed to be inedible, like you can't eat it. But someone called Parmentier, while he was living in Paris, decided to create a dish made of potato, and this dish would be so delicious that everybody will eat potatoes and will understand that you can eat potatoes. So it consists in like a mix of potato and some chopped beef. So in French you would say mélange de pommes de terre et de bœuf haché. Mélange de pommes de terre, potato, et de bœuf haché. Mix of potatoes and chopped beef, and you can add an S. You can add an S here. Et de bœuf haché. Mix of potatoes and chopped beef. Or you can also just remove the two S, like it doesn't really matter. Mélange de pommes de terre et de bœuf haché. So, hachis parmentier. So you've seen that I presented a lot of dishes from France, and here there is like a kind of big hole. Like it's not that I don't like this region, but I didn't have time to choose like to explain you all the different dishes that you can find in France. So like here is really famous for the wine. This region is really famous for the wine, but there are also many plates that are famous. But I really wanted to talk about those 10s because they're really important in France. So I hope you really like it. And if you want more videos, you can like subscribe to this channel if you haven't subscribed yet. And if you really like it, you can like just click on the like button and leave a comment in the comment sections. And if you want more videos on French learning, you can go to our website, FrenchPod101.com. You will find a lot of resources to improve your French. That's all from me for today. It was Pierre, and see you on next lesson. Bye.
Welcome back to Top Words, and this week will be about top 15 questions you should know. So if you travel in France, pay attention to those. Aimes-tu la cuisine française? Do you like French food? So if you are invited somewhere, usually people ask this question. Aimes-tu la cuisine française? Do you like French food? Oh, aimes-tu la cuisine française? Yeah, sure, I love it. So, do you like French food? C'est quand votre anniversaire? When is your birthday? Quand est ton anniversaire? If you want to be a bit casual. Ou quand est ton anniversaire? When is your birthday? Combien de temps as-tu appris le français? How long have you been studying French? Combien de temps as-tu appris le français? Or, pendant combien de temps as-tu appris le français? Usually we say pendant combien de temps. I'm sorry if I speak really fast, but French people usually speak really fast. For 3 months. Wow, you're good. Comment t'appelles-tu? What's your name? You will hear this one a lot. So, comment t'appelles-tu? Or more casually will be comment tu t'appelles? Comment vas-tu? How are you? Comment vas-tu? How are you? Hey, bonjour, comment vas-tu? Or you will often hear comment ça va? Hey, comment ça va? D'où venez-vous? Where are you from? D'où venez-vous? Where do you come from? And just answer where you come from. I'm from America. French people often make jokes about English-speaking people, so prove them wrong by answering in French and you will impress them really much. That would be so great. So try it. Es-tu déjà allé en France? Have you been to France? Well, aller is go. So if you are already in France when answering this, it would be Es-tu déjà venu en France? Which is did you ever come to France? With a notion of did you ever come before or is it your first time? Maybe you will also hear this one. Is it your first time in France? Ou est-ce que c'est ta première fois en France? Où as-tu appris le français? Where did you learn French? Où as-tu appris le français? Where did you learn French? On French Pod 101 with me. Yeah, where did you learn French? Leave me a comment below. Maybe in your home country or on the internet, or did you study it more seriously in school? So just tell me. Où habitez-vous? Where do you live? I used to live in the south, so between Spain and Italy. It was a nice place, full of sun and everything. You should check it out, so come to the south of France, it's sunny. Où sont les toilettes? Where is the bathroom? Où sont les toilettes? You will need this one in a restaurant. Toilette is a plural word in French. We used to make a joke that French toilets are so dirty that you have to check many of them before finding a decent one. That's why it's a plural name. Some toilets you have to pay to access them actually in public places. So be careful. Sometimes you need a coin, especially in stations like train stations. Où travaillez-vous? Where do you work? Où travaillez-vous? Where do you work? I work on the internet. It's a worldwide place. So, and after this one, usually you will be asked, what do you work in? Or what's your job? Quel est ton travail? Ou dans quoi travailles-tu? Here you go. Qu'avez-vous dit? What did you say? Qu'avez-vous dit? Or you will often hear, pardon? Or excuse me? Like, I'm sorry, like I didn't catch you. So, pardon? Excusez-moi. Or, can you repeat? Pouvez-vous répéter? So if French people say that to you, just try and repeating what you said. Qu'est-ce que c'est? What is this? Qu'est-ce que c'est? I don't know. Show them something fancy for your own country and tell them. And they will ask, oh, qu'est-ce que c'est? Quel est ton numéro de téléphone? What's your phone number? Quel est ton numéro de téléphone? What's your phone number? This is a pickup line. Hey,
Ooh.
What's your phone number? Quel est ton numéro de téléphone? Ah, yeah, maybe they will ask for your pseudo, which is your ID in any web messaging service. Es-tu célibataire? Are you single? And if you are traveling to France and happen to find love, maybe you will be asked, are you single? Es-tu célibataire? Or maybe the other sneaky way around. Est-ce que tu as un copain? Ou est-ce que tu as une copine? Do you have a boyfriend or do you have a girlfriend? So maybe you will find French love in France. Who knows? And it's the end for this week. Don't forget to subscribe for more and don't forget to check the website if you want to know more about French. And see you next time. À bientôt. Oh.
How are your French listening skills? First, you'll see an image and hear a question. Next comes a short dialogue. Listen carefully and see if you can answer correctly. We'll show you the answer at the end.
Un homme et une femme parlent. Que vont-ils faire en premier?
Que voulez-vous faire aujourd'hui?
Je veux aller voir un film.
Ok, moi, je veux regarder un match de baseball à la télé.
Je veux aussi aller faire du shopping.
Le match de baseball commencera à 1h de l'après-midi.
Ok, donc allons voir le film d'abord et ensuite vous pourrez regarder le match de baseball.
Très bien. Et nous allons faire du shopping ce soir.
Que vont-ils faire en premier? Un homme et une femme parlent. Que vont-ils faire en premier?
Que voulez-vous faire aujourd'hui?
Je veux aller voir un film.
Ok, moi, je veux regarder un match de baseball à la télé.
Je veux aussi aller faire du shopping.
Le match de baseball commencera à 1h de l'après-midi.
Ok, donc allons voir le film d'abord et ensuite vous pourrez regarder le match de baseball.
Très bien. Et nous allons faire du shopping ce soir.
Did you get it right? I hope you learned something from this quiz. Let us know if you have any questions. See you next time.
In the last lesson, we learned the most common forms of greetings in French. Do you remember them? In this lesson, we are going to learn a very useful phrase. Do you speak English? If you find yourself in a situation where you need assistance in English, this phrase can be a lifesaver. And because you're asking it in French, you can be sure that everyone will understand what you're saying, even if their answer is no. Here's the informal way to say it. Est-ce que tu parles anglais? Est-ce que tu parles anglais? In French, verbs change depending on the pronoun that is used. Please notice the word tu in the middle of the sentence. Remember that this is the informal way to say you. The next word is the verb parler, which means to speak. Because it's referring to tu, it's conjugated to tu parles. Est-ce que is an interrogative form to introduce a question. It is similar to the English word do here. And you probably recognize anglais, that is English. Est-ce que tu parles anglais? To learn how to properly conjugate verbs like parler, please look at the Absolute Beginner series on FrenchPod101.com. You can find very detailed grammar lessons and resources there. We are now going to make this sentence formal. First, we need to use a formal version of you, which is vous. If we change the word to vous, we will conjugate parler differently. It becomes this, but it's pronounced the same way, parler. Est-ce que vous parlez anglais? Est-ce que vous parlez anglais? Adding excuse-moi, excuse me, the sentence becomes even more polite. Excusez-moi, est-ce que vous parlez anglais? Excusez-moi, est-ce que vous parlez anglais? The responses you will receive could be one of these three. Oui, yes, oui. Un peu, a little. Un peu. Non, je ne parle pas anglais. No, I don't speak English. Non, je ne parle pas anglais. Since this last one is a negative statement, we need to say ne before the verb parle and pas after it. Notice that the verb parle is slightly different from parler. Remember, the verb changed depending on the pronoun used. We are now talking about je, French for I, thus I don't speak is je ne parle pas. Now it's time for Ingrid's insights. For those of you who are not only English speakers, you can obviously use this question with any other language you need. French people study other European languages at school, so maybe you will get lucky. Just substitute anglais with English, italien for Italian, russe for Russian, espagnol for Spanish, allemand for German. and any other languages. In this lesson, we mentioned the expression excusez-moi. But did you know that this could also be used as an apology? In the next lesson, we will learn this and other ways to apologize in French. It's never too late to show your good manners with French people. I'll see you in our next Le Français en 3 minutes. À bientôt!
Hi watchers! Today we are going to learn to respond to the question, how are you? So if anyone is asking you how you're doing or how are you, here are some answers you can give them. Let's start. First one is, je vais bien, I'm fine. How are you in French is comment vas-tu? Comment vas-tu? Je vais bien. So how are you? Oh, I'm fine. J'ai sommeil, I'm sleepy. Comment vas-tu? Ah, j'ai sommeil. Sommeil. So how are you today? Ah, I'm sleepy. J'ai trop travaillé hier et maintenant j'ai sommeil. I worked too hard yesterday and now I'm sleepy. Je suis fatigué. I'm tired. Je n'ai pas beaucoup dormi hier soir et maintenant je suis fatigué. I didn't sleep well last night and now I'm tired. Meow, twice. Je pète la forme. I'm great. Je pète la forme. This is literally it means I break the shape. It's when you are super great and in super strong shape and feeling amazing. Woo! Comment ça va? Ça va super! So how are you doing? I'm great! Or I'm doing awesome! Je me sens mal. I'm feeling bad. So for example, when you ate something bad and then you say, I ate something weird and no, I'm feeling bad. J'ai mangé quelque chose de mauvais et maintenant je me sens mal. When you are feeling dizzy, it also works. Ça va pas mal. I'm not bad. It's when you are doing so-so. Like, how are you doing? Ah, ça va pas mal. I mean, I'm not doing well, but I'm not going too bad, so... Meh. Et vous? And you? So if you want to be more casual with someone, you can ask, et toi? And you? So, oh, comment ça va? Ça va bien, et toi? How are you doing? I'm fine, and you? Merci d'avoir demandé. Thank you for asking. So, comment ça va? Ah, ça va pas mal, merci d'avoir demandé. Ah, how are you doing? Ah, it's not bad, thank you for asking. Well, it's a polite way to end the conversation, maybe. Instead of going, how are you doing? Fine, and you? Fine, and you? Fine, and you? Comment allez-vous ces derniers temps? How have you been doing recently? This is also quite formal. You can hear a lot of old people asking this way. So, comment allez-vous ces derniers temps? How have you been recently? Ah! Je suis triste. I'm feeling sad. Mon chat vient de mourir et je me sens triste. My cat just died and I'm feeling sad. And then you get a good pat on the back and you can ask for cake. That would be nice. I like asking for cake when I'm sad. Chocolate ones. I like chocolate. So that's it for this week, watchers. So tell me, how are you feeling in the comments? And don't forget to check FrenchPod 101 for more lessons. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. No, everyone tells me it's not house, a house. And I just cannot do it. So, how are you?
Hi everybody, Candice here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I answer your most common French questions. The question for this lesson is, what are some popular French idioms? In English, we have our fair share of idioms like, it's raining cats and dogs, or even, what's up? They might not make much sense literally, but they are commonly used in everyday conversation. French, of course, has them too, and here are some examples. Faire la tête means to sulk, but its literal translation is actually to do the head. It's used when someone isn't happy about something and in a bad mood. For example, elle a fait la tête toute la journée. She sulked all day. We also have coup de foudre, which literally means a strike of lightning. But as an idiom, it means love at first sight. Pretty fitting, actually. Ça marche is one you'll come across every day. Marcher means to walk, but ça marche means that works. English speakers might recognize this following one. Il fait un temps de chien, literally, it's a dog weather. It means, as you might have guessed, it's terrible weather. Here's a funny one. Arriver comme un cheveu sur la soupe. It literally means to arrive like a hair in the soup. This is about entering a situation at the worst possible moment. It can also mean arriving suddenly, by chance. Another idiom that uses food is mettre son grain de sel, literally, to put one's grain of salt. It's an idiom that means to give an unnecessary opinion. Donner sa langue au chat literally means to give one's tongue to the cat, but it actually means to give up. For example, if someone asks you to guess something and you have no idea what the answer is. Another one that doesn't make much sense, but you'll often hear is faire la grasse matinée, which literally means to do a fat morning, but people use it to say they slept in. Ça coûte les yeux de la tête, which means it's ridiculously expensive, but literally means it costs the eyes out of the head. There you go. Try them out. If you have any more questions, please leave them in the comments below and I try to answer them. À bientôt.
Welcome to Fun and Easy French by FrenchPod101.com. Do you know that there are different forms of greeting someone that you just met in French? Salut, je suis Laurine. Hi everyone, I'm Laurine. In this lesson, you'll learn all about how to introduce yourself in French. Learning how to introduce yourself in French is very important when making new French friends, especially if you're looking into leaving a great first impression with them. It's also not necessary for you to be fluent in French when introducing yourself in any situation. You only need to learn the right tips and tricks to make sure people don't forget about you once they get to know you. In this video, you'll learn first, how to get started when introducing yourself. Second, how to learn about each other. Then, some specific introduction lines. And finally, how to leave an impression and how FrenchPod 101 can help you. Let's start with how to get started. Do you want to make friends with the people in France and create a long-lasting first impression? Then, you need to know what formal greetings in French are. There is a French etiquette that you need to follow when greeting someone in French. Here's the first useful word. Bonjour, hello or good day. Bonjour. Bonjour is used from morning to sundown. It's not too formal nor too relaxed. Another way to start a conversation is by greeting someone with bonsoir, good evening. Bonsoir. Bonsoir, it's the nighttime version of bonjour and can be used professionally and with your friends. You may also greet by saying salut, hi, salut, salut. It's the casual version of bonjour that you can use at any time of the day. There are two forms of you in French. Vous, vous, vous for formal encounters or when meeting someone for the first time, and tu, tu, tu for more casual interaction or when meeting friends and acquaintances. Another formal greeting in French is shaking someone's hand or using la bise, the kiss. La bise. What are the differences? Let me explain. La bise, or the typical French custom of kissing on the cheeks, can be used when greeting someone of the opposite sex in a casual way, for example, after using salut and tu. But if you're not sure what to do, go for a handshake instead. Next is useful expressions to learn about each other. Now, let's learn about the classic questions and answers that usually come up when you meet someone. Others will not only get to know you, but you'll be able to get to know them as well. But before we begin,
You first need to remember that questions have two forms, formal and casual. Answers, on the other hand, mostly have one form only. Let's start with the question, what's your name? Giving your name or asking someone's name in French uses the verb s'appeler. 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 The casual form of what's your name is comment tu t'appelles? Comment tu t'appelles? Comment tu t'appelles? Or tu t'appelles comment? Tu t'appelles comment? Tu t'appelles comment? The formal form, on the other hand, is comment vous appelez-vous? Comment vous appelez-vous? Comment vous appelez-vous? Here's an example of an answer. Je m'appelle Bob. My name is Bob. Je m'appelle Bob. Je m'appelle Bob. It literally means I call myself Bob. This is the most common way to state your name, and it works in both formal and casual situations. Now, it's your turn to ask the same question. You can casually say et toi and you, et toi, et toi, or formally say et vous and you, et vous, et vous. When you're being asked back in a casual situation, you can answer moi, c'est Bob. I'm Bob. Moi, c'est Bob. Moi, c'est Bob. Next, I'm going to teach you how to ask and answer back in French with the question, where are you from? The casual form of this question is like this. D'où tu viens? Where are you from? D'où tu viens? Other forms are tu viens d'où? Tu viens d'où? Or tu es d'où? Tu es d'où? Another example is de quel pays tu viens? From what country are you from? De quel pays tu viens? De quel pays tu viens? Or, tu es de quelle nationalité? What is your nationality? Tu es de quelle nationalité? Tu es de quelle nationalité? The formal way, on the other hand, is like this. D'où venez-vous? Where are you from? D'où venez-vous? D'où venez-vous? Or, de quel pays venez-vous? From what country are you from? De quel pays venez-vous? De quel pays venez-vous? Another example is quelle est votre nationalité? What is your nationality? Quelle est votre nationalité? Quelle est votre nationalité? If you're from another country, like China, you can answer with the Je viens de Chine. I'm coming from China. Je viens de Chine. Je viens de Chine. Or, je suis chinois. If you're a male, je suis chinoise. If you're female, it means I am Chinese. Je suis chinois or je suis chinoise. If you feel like giving the city where you're currently living, you can say Je viens de Paris. I'm from Paris. Je viens de Paris. Je viens de Paris. Or, j'habite à Paris. I'm living in Paris. J'habite à Paris. J'habite à Paris. Next up, we're going to learn the casual and formal way of asking the question, what's your profession? And how to answer it in French. Don't worry, in France, it's very common to ask about other people's job in the early conversation. So, feel free to ask this question or answer back if you're being asked. The casual way of asking about someone's profession is like this. Tu fais quoi dans la vie? What are you doing in life? Tu fais quoi dans la vie? Tu fais quoi dans la vie? Or, tu fais quel métier? What is your job? Tu fais quel métier? Tu fais quel métier? In a formal setting, you can ask it like this. Quel travail faites-vous? What is your occupation? Quel travail faites-vous? Quel travail faites-vous? If you're being asked about your profession, you can answer in any of these ways. Je suis étudiante. I'm a student. Je suis étudiante. Je suis étudiante. Or, j'étudie la biologie. I'm studying biology. J'étudie la biologie. J'étudie la biologie. Another one is je travaille dans l'informatique. I'm working in IT. Je travaille dans l'informatique. Je travaille dans l'informatique. You can also answer with je suis dans la finance. I'm working in finance. Je suis dans la finance. Je suis dans la finance. Or, if you're a carpenter, you can say je suis charpentier. I'm a carpenter. Je suis charpentier. Je suis charpentier. By the way, the keywords here are travail or métier, which means occupation or profession. Travail or métier. During casual conversations, you can replace them with some slang expressions. For example, boulot, boulot, boulot. Or taf, taf, taf. Or job, job, job. When meeting someone for the first time, asking about their family isn't really too common. But just in case someone asks you, you might as well learn how to ask or answer it in French. Here are some examples in casual French. Tu es marié? Are you married? Tu es marié? Tu es marié? Tu as des enfants? Do you have kids? Tu as des enfants? Tu as des enfants? Tu as des frères et sœurs? Do you have brothers and sisters? Tu as des frères et sœurs? Tu as des frères et sœurs? In a formal setting, you can ask it this way. Vous êtes marié? Are you married? Vous êtes marié? Vous êtes marié? Vous avez des enfants? Do you have kids? Vous avez des enfants? Vous avez des enfants? Vous avez des frères et sœurs? Do you have brothers and sisters? Vous avez des frères et sœurs? Vous avez des frères et sœurs? Then, you may find yourself answering in any of these ways. Oui, je suis mariée. Yes, I'm married. Oui, je suis mariée. Oui, je suis mariée. Non, je suis célibataire. No, I'm single. Non, je suis célibataire. Non, je suis célibataire. Non, je suis divorcée. No, I'm divorced. Non, je suis divorcée. Non, je suis divorcée. J'ai 2 enfants. I have 2 kids. J'ai 2 enfants. J'ai 2 enfants. J'ai un petit frère et une grande sœur. I have a little brother and a big sister. J'ai un petit frère et une grande sœur. J'ai un petit frère et une grande sœur. French people are a bit more sensitive about asking someone else's age. especially for women. But if you meet a young girl or a woman who's comfortable about answering just about any questions, then you may ask about her age. The casual way of asking someone's age is Tu as quel âge? How old are you? Tu as quel âge? Tu as quel âge? Asking in a formal manner is Quel âge avez-vous? Quel âge avez-vous? Quel âge avez-vous? Then you can answer it with J'ai 30 ans. I'm 30 years old. J'ai 30 ans. J'ai 30 ans. Next question you may ask or might be asked of you is a question about your hobbies. The casual way of asking is C'est quoi tes hobbies? Or passe-temps? What are your hobbies? C'est quoi tes hobbies? Passe-temps? C'est quoi tes hobbies? Passe-temps? Or you can also ask Tu fais quoi de ton temps libre? What do you do with your free time? Tu fais quoi de ton temps libre? Tu fais quoi de ton temps libre? The formal way, on the other hand, is Quels sont vos hobbies? What are your hobbies? Quels sont vos hobbies? Quels sont vos hobbies? Or, que faites-vous de votre temps libre? What do you do with your free time? Que faites-vous de votre temps libre? The formal way, on the other hand, is Quels sont vos hobbies? What are your hobbies? Quels sont vos hobbies? Quels sont vos hobbies? Or, que faites-vous de votre temps libre? What do you do with your free time? Que faites-vous de votre temps libre? Que faites-vous de votre temps libre? Here are some examples of answering this question in French. Je joue au tennis. I'm playing tennis. Je joue au tennis. Je joue au tennis. Je joue du piano. I'm playing piano. Je joue du piano. Je joue du piano. Je passe mes nuits sur HBO. I spend my nights on HBO. Je passe mes nuits sur HBO. Je passe mes nuits sur HBO. J'écris un journal de voyage. I'm writing a travel diary. J'écris un journal de voyage. J'écris un journal de voyage. Next, let's see some specific introduction lines. Now that you know the most common questions and answers in French, let's now start learning how to introduce yourself with useful French phrases in certain situations. When traveling, you may find yourself conversing with friendly locals. The conversation could go this way. Tu voyages depuis longtemps? You're being asked. Have you been traveling for a long time? Tu voyages depuis longtemps? Tu voyages depuis longtemps? Then, you can answer with Je voyage depuis 2 mois. I have been traveling for 2 months. Je voyage depuis 2 mois. Je voyage depuis 2 mois. If you are asked, Tu as visité quel autre pays? What other countries did you visit? Tu as visité quel autre pays? Tu as visité quel autre pays? You can answer with Je suis allé en Espagne et en Italie. I have been to Spain and Italy. Je suis allé en Espagne et en Italie. Je suis allé en Espagne et en Italie. But what about when you're meeting with your coworkers? You may be asked, Tu travailles dans quel service? Which means, in which division are you working? Tu travailles dans quel service? Tu travailles dans quel service? Then, you can answer with Je travaille aux ressources humaines. I'm working with HR. Je travaille aux ressources humaines. Je travaille aux ressources humaines. Another question could be, tu bosses sur quoi en ce moment? What are you working on right now? Tu bosses sur quoi en ce moment? Tu bosses sur quoi en ce moment? You may answer it with, je viens de commencer un nouveau projet. I have just started working on a new project. Je viens de commencer un nouveau projet. Je viens de commencer un nouveau projet. When you're in a casual social event, someone might ask you, tu fais quoi demain soir? What are you doing tomorrow night? Tu fais quoi demain soir? Tu fais quoi demain soir? You may answer with, je vais au cinéma avec un pote. I'm going to a movie with a pal. Je vais au cinéma avec un pote. Je vais au cinéma avec un pote. Another question you may come across is, tu as un copain? Or, tu as une copine? Do you have a boyfriend, girlfriend? Tu as un copain? Tu as une copine? Tu as un copain? Or, tu as une copine? You may answer with, non, on a rompu il y a 2 semaines. No, we broke up 2 weeks ago. Non, on a rompu il y a 2 semaines. Non, on a rompu il y a 2 semaines. Another situation you might get into while in France is participating in a family meeting. So, if a family member asks you, vous vous êtes rencontrés comment? Meaning, how did you meet? Vous vous êtes rencontrés comment? Vous vous êtes rencontrés comment? You can answer it with, j'ai rencontré Julie à l'université. I met Julie at the university. J'ai rencontré Julie à l'université. J'ai rencontré Julie à l'université. Another question that you might be asked of you is, comment tu connais Bastien? How do you know Bastien? Comment tu connais Bastien? Comment tu connais Bastien? You may answer it with, on travaille ensemble. We work together. On travaille ensemble. On travaille ensemble. Next is how to leave an impression. We would like to share with you a couple of tips that you can use if you want to leave a great impression when making new friends. The first tip is to never make it all about yourself. When someone asks something about you, there's really no need to tell that person everything about you. It will make you more interesting and appealing if you let that person find out what else you can offer or can do. Talk less about yourself. Ask them questions instead. Learn more about their culture or find what they like to do. Focus on getting to know them more. It will make them feel you are interested in them and they will soon feel comfortable to be around you. Another thing you may want to do if you want to leave a great impression is showing your interest by dropping a word of appreciation once you hear that person's name. This can take different forms. Here are some examples. Enchanté, which means delighted. Enchanté, enchanté. Ravi de vous rencontrer, or heureux, or heureuse de vous rencontrer. Happy to meet you. Ravi de vous rencontrer, or heureux, or heureuse de vous rencontrer. Ravi de vous rencontrer, or heureux, or heureuse de vous rencontrer. C'est un plaisir de vous rencontrer. It's a pleasure to meet you. C'est un plaisir de vous rencontrer. C'est un plaisir de vous rencontrer. You can cut it down to un plaisir de vous rencontrer. Pleased to meet you. Un plaisir de vous rencontrer. Un plaisir de vous rencontrer. Or even un plaisir. A pleasure. Un plaisir. Un plaisir. Other forms to show your interests when you're greeting in French are Je m'appelle Julie. My name is Julie. Je m'appelle Julie. Je m'appelle Julie. You can then say C'est un très joli prénom. It's a really pretty name. C'est un très joli prénom. C'est un très joli prénom. Another example is Je suis photographe. I'm a photographer. Je suis photographe. Je suis photographe. You can respond with Génial! Quel genre de photo? Great! What kind of photos? Génial! Quel genre de photo? Génial! Quel genre de photo? And j'ai 40 ans. I'm 40 years old. J'ai 40 ans. J'ai 40 ans. You may then say Vraiment? Tu fais beaucoup plus jeune. Really? You look so much younger. Vraiment? Tu fais beaucoup plus jeune. Vraiment? Tu fais beaucoup plus jeune. The last tip we want to share with you is for you to start a conversation in French. You're likely to make a good first impression if you at least try to converse in French. It doesn't matter if your French is unpolished. They will appreciate you for trying. Saying bonjour, hello, bonjour, bonjour. Or, je ne parle pas français. I don't speak French. Je ne parle pas français. Je ne parle pas français. Is better than not being able to speak any French words at all. Now on to part 5. How can FrenchPod 101 help you? By teaching you French and getting you to speak from your very first lesson. FrenchPod 101's lessons build you up from your first words to mastering entire conversations. And you get lessons for all levels, from absolute beginner to advanced. Enough to take you from knowing zero to speak fluently. You can also learn with your own teacher with the Premium Plus plan. They'll correct your French, tell you how to improve your speaking, writing, and grammar, and even help you practice for job interviews in French. In this lesson, you learned how to greet in French in casual and formal manner, the most common types of question and answers, example of introduction lines, and how to leave a good first impression when meeting a French person for the first time.
Want to speed up your language learning? Take your very first lesson with us. You'll start speaking in minutes and master real conversations. Sign up for your free lifetime account. Just click the link in the description.